Common, and I am chairman of this planning committee. I welcome members of Wiltshire Council and the public to this meeting. I've got a few housekeeping things to go through. First, please can I ask that all devices are turned to silent for the duration of the meeting. If there is a fire, please exit the building via the nearest exit and congregate on the grass in front of the building. Parking services have been informed about the meeting, and the 2 hours free parking will be extended, so don't worry about that. So should the meeting go on more than 2 hours, it won't be an issue. Finally, please note that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast to the Wiltshire Council YouTube site, and all documents relating to this meeting can be accessed on the Wiltshire Council website. I will now formally open the meeting. Item 1, apologies for absence. To receive any apologies or substitutes, and I have down here that Councillor Andrew Griffin has sent in apologies and is substituted by Councillor Julie Vine. I think that is it, isn't it? Yes. 2, minutes of the previous meeting. The minutes of the last meeting the committee held on the 9th of July 2025 are available on pages 7 to 26 of the agenda. Do members have any comments regarding these minutes? I therefore move that the minutes be approved and signed as a true and correct record. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Clark. Everybody else happy with that? Yep. Sorry, for a vote on the minutes, I will ask if there are any members who object to the motion. So I'll do it properly. There being none, the minutes are approved. Okay. Declarations of interest. To receive any declarations of disposable interests or dispensations granted by the Stands Committee or monitoring officers. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chairman. Thanks, Chairman. For item 9 on the agenda, I declare that I was a member of the Parish Council Planning Committee that considered this application. I abstained from voting on the matter and will consider it today with an open mind. Thanks, Chairman.
Okay, and I myself, item 2, the second one we're looking at, I'm a member of Trowbridge Town Council, and we did consider this one. I abstained as I didn't want to do anything that would look like predetermination on that particular item, as I'm chairing the meeting today. I've not campaigned in a particular direction on this one, but have advised the residents as to our planning rules and regulations, and will express my opinion when I put on a different hat as the local member and explain what I'm thinking about that after I've heard the officer's report. Anybody else? No? Okay. Chairman's announcements. To receive any announcements through the chair, I don't have any. Okay, now I'll explain public participation. We've got a good number of members of the public here, which is always good to see. And so for the benefit of those in attendance and watching online, I will summarise how the items before us will be debated. First, 1, the officer will present their report and explain their recommendations. 2, I will then ask for members of the committee if they have any technical questions they wish to ask the officer for a response to. 3rd, we will then proceed to the public participation section. Each speaker in objection and support will be called to deliver their statement in up to 3 minutes. After that, we then move on. Any parish council statements that have been submitted may be delivered in up to 4 minutes. And then 6, the local unitary member may then speak prior to debate or open debate if they're a member of the committee. 7, I will then open the meeting to debate. If the local member is not a member of the committee, the first committee member to speak will be asked to move a motion which must be seconded. At the conclusion of any debate on a motion, we will proceed to a vote. For each vote that takes place, I will ask each member to indicate their vote by a show of hands. They can do this by raising their hand for, against, and abstain when called. Okay, so that's the process. Move on to item 6, planning appeals and updates. And I'll ask Gary Collins to take that through there in Kenny Green's absence.
Thank you, Chair. A brief update for the committee this time around. Obviously, you've got a number of decisions as part of the papers. The ones that I'll focus on are the ones that relate to decisions made by this committee. And so there's 2 there. They're part of the table, and the 2 items are listed on page 28. The first one is 6 Ash Walk, which the committee refused. You'll see there that the appeal was dealt with through written representations and the appeal was dismissed. So the committee's decision was upheld, I'm glad to say. The issue there was about an over-intense use of what was part of a residential curtilage by squeezing in another dwelling. So the planning inspector agreed with the committee on that one. And then the other one relates to land at Melksham Road, Great Parks in Holt. This was one where the committee had decided to refuse permission. This is the application sought approval of reserved matters for 90 dwellings. It was heading towards appeal, but I think members may be aware that a further application was made to try and resolve those issues. I understand that those issues were successfully resolved, and I believe the local member even spoke at the committee to endorse that approach. So as that other application was approved, the appellants then withdrew the appeal in question. So that's why it says there that it was scheduled for a hearing. It didn't take place because the appeal was withdrawn following receipt of reserved matters approval. So unless there's any other questions, Chair, that's my update this time around.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from councillors? No. Okay. Therefore, this report needs to be noted. Do I have a proposer? Seconder? Thank you. Right, we move on to the first major item, it's a rights of way application. Proposed extinguishment of footpath number 15, part, and that's section 118A of the Highways Act 1980, stopping up footpaths, bridleways and restricted bridleways crossing railways, and section 53A of the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981, and this refers to footpath Westbury 15 part, and that's pages 67 to 206. It's a bit of a,
I'm so sorry.
no problem. All right. Now I will invite Ali Roberts to take us through the application.
There we go. Wonderful. Good afternoon. My name is Ali Roberts, and I am a definitive map officer for the Rights of Way and Countryside team. Today I've come to the Western Area Planning Committee for a decision on whether to proceed with an extinguishment application or whether to turn down the application. The application was made by Network Rail to extinguish Penley Park Level Crossing, which is Westbury Footpath 15 part, under Section 118A of the Highways Act 1980. The application is made on the grounds that it is in the interests of the public safety. Network Rail state that there is now a serious risk of fatality if the level crossing is not closed, due to the significant increase in users with a proportionally high number of vulnerable and encumbered users. Substantial objection to the proposed extinguishment of the level crossing has been received, citing concerns that include closing the crossing will create a loss of connectivity to the Rights of Way network, as this is the only viable link to the walking public from Amazon Way Estate to Westbury Town and vice versa. The crossing provides a vital access to essential amenities and community utilities. The alternative route is 1 kilometre longer and unsuitable for increased pedestrian traffic, particularly the vulnerable and encumbered, due to safety concerns. Closing this heavily used active travel route will result in considerable inconvenience to the local community and the walking public. Therefore, the proposed extinguishment application has been brought before the Western Area Planning Committee for a decision on whether to refuse to make an order or to make an order to extinguish the section of footpath Westbury 15 closing Penley level crossing. Network Rail's statement of reasons for applying to close the level crossing include: the level crossing has a very high number of daily crossings as it provides the most convenient access from the new housing development towards Westbury Town, local amenities including shops, schools, parks and the recreation ground. The level crossing is located on the Westbury avoiding line, which provides a faster link for trains. Network Rail is aware that the crossing is used by vulnerable and encumbered users who may not be able to use the crossing with the same degree of awareness and safety as other users. The risk assessment modifies the time these users take to cross by 50%. Network Rail is also aware of misuse of the crossing. The crossing is already at the highest level protection, therefore without the construction of a bridge, no additional mitigation can be provided. Therefore, it is proposed to extinguish approximately 20 metres of Westbury 15 from points A to point B on the plan shown on the slide, with the effect that it will close Penley Park level crossing. The shortest alternative route for the walking public would be via Oldfield Road, Bridge Court, Station Road, Amazon Way, and vice versa, which is approximately additional 1 kilometre journey. An initial consultation on the proposal ran from the 29th of May 2025 for a 6-week period and included landowners, statutory undertakers, statutory consultees, user groups and other interested parties, including the Wiltshire Council member for Westbury West and Westbury Town Council, the area countryside access officers, area highway engineers, the bridge engineer and sustainable transport. Notices were also posted on the site due to the likely public interest in this proposal. The consultation received 45 objections. Objectors include the area highway engineer, the countryside access and development officer, the 2 countryside access officers for the area, the Ramblers, Open Spaces Society and Westbury Town Council. A decision report was written in which the legal tests, the evidence provided by Network Rail and objections received are discussed in detail. The officer report concluded that in this case, the proposed extinguishment application should be brought to the Western Area Planning Committee, whose members should consider the legal test for extinguishment against the objections received, in order to determine whether Wiltshire Council should make an order to extinguish the level crossing or refuse to make an order, with clear reasons why this decision has been made. The making of a public path extinguishment order is a discretionary duty for the Council rather than a statutory duty. Therefore, if an order is made, it may be withdrawn at any time if it is considered that the order no longer meets the legal tests set out at Section 118A of the Highways Act 1980. The next slides show the current route and the shortest alternative route. Photographs were taken in September 2025. This slide shows Penley Park level crossing. The photograph on the left is from Amazon Way Estate, heading south. The path is ramped to the track crossing, then stepped down to Oldfield roadside, which is the photograph on the right. Objectors have stated that Penley Park is a superior crossing with good access, an all-weather surface, good visibility, and the traffic light system is clear and easy to use. Walking this 20-metre route took me 17 seconds. This slide shows the visibility of the crossing. The left photograph is looking southwest and the right photograph is looking northeastwards. This is the start of the alternative route from Amazon Way Estate. The path is a wide, dual pedestrian cycle route. These photographs are of the junction of Amazon Way meeting Station Road. As can be seen, there is no pedestrian crossing to cross from Amazon Way to Station Road pavement on the eastern side of the road. Therefore, during busy traffic periods, the pavement on the west side of Station Road is the only viable option, particularly for the vulnerable and encumbered users. The pavement on the west side leading from Amazon Way to Station Road is very narrow and therefore puts the pedestrian into close proximity with a busy road with a proportionally high number of heavy vehicles. The pavement would be particularly difficult to navigate for the elderly, wheelchair users, toddlers and prams, children walking to school, dog walkers, etc. Under Station Road Bridge, the pavement narrows to 700 mil. The pavement is raised from the road and has a slight camber with no safety railing. Again, you can see how busy the road is and how close the traffic is to the pedestrians. There are pigeons nesting in the roof of the bridge, which means the path is quite unpleasant and unsanitary. The path width means that there is only room for a single file pedestrian traffic. People crossing would be required to step into the busy road. This is particularly well demonstrated by the photograph on the right. The path is so narrow, the gentleman is carrying his bag within the road width, and the driver of the car has felt the need to veer slightly to give the pedestrian room. The eastern side pavement under Station Road Bridge is wider, approximately 2 metres, and has a safety railing. However, as can be seen in the photograph on the left, there are no pedestrian crossing points, making this access extremely difficult at peak traffic periods, particularly if encumbered or vulnerable. The pigeon issue is even more prolific this side of the bridge, making the path even more unpleasant. Once past the bridge, there is a busy MOT garage with two entrances off Station Road crossing the pavement. From Station Road, the pedestrian would turn onto Bridge Court. The route can get quite overgrown due to the overgrowth of the hedgings from the railway corridor. From Bridge Court onto Oldfield Road, which is a particularly busy road, the photograph on the right shows the crossing point which will be taken to avoid the obstructions on the level crossing side of Oldfield Road. If you stay on the same side of the road that the level crossing is on, there are trees and shrubbery blocking the width of the verge to the extent you would need to walk into the road. The 1 kilometre route took me over 15 minutes to walk. It should be noted, I conducted the site inspection at 10:30 a.m, so not at peak traffic times. Section 118A(1) of the Highways Act of 1980 provides for the extinguishment of a footpath that crosses a railway otherwise than by a tunnel or bridge, where it appears to the council expedient in the interest of the safety of members of the public using it or likely to use it. DEFRA Rights of Way Circular 1-09, which gives guidance for local authorities, states, care should be taken to avoid the creation of cul-de-sacs that would encourage trespass onto the railway. It is clear from the objections received during the initial consultation period that this is an exceptionally well-used and convenient active travel route, many stating they use the crossing multiple times a day. This is not disputed by Network Rail. The map on the slide shows approximately where these amenities are. The red line is the crossing proposed to be closed. The black dashed line is the shortest alternative route. The essential amenities include Westbury train station at 1, Whitehorse Health Centre and Pharmacy at 2, schools at 3, 4 and 5, nurseries at 3 and 4, community utilities such as shops at 3 and 6, community centres at 3 and 6, the local park and skate park at 8, and access to the lake at 7. This is the main link for the walking public from Amazon Way Estate to Westbury Town and vice versa, and provides a vital connection for the two communities. Prior to the housing estate being built, the crossing had been used by the public to access Westbury train station. The path was physically obstructed in 2016 by the erection of steel fencing and a bund across the path. Subsequently, a definitive map modification order application was received to add the route, which is shown in red on the plan on the left. Several user evidence forms were submitted with the application claiming use and witness use of the route, which would be accessed via Penley Park level crossing, which is just at the end of the red line on the plan. This route also provides access to the Rights of Way network, which links the walking public from Westbury to Dilton Marsh. Amazon Way Development has installed a dual-use path to the railway station, which parallels the route used by the commuters up to its obstruction in 2016, and that is the photograph on the right. So the route that's been installed is on the left, and just on the other side of the barbed fence is the route that people used to use and was the DMMO route. The shortest alternative route would add approximately 1 kilometre to the walking journey of residents, which objectors have stated will result in considerable inconvenience to regular users of the crossing and potentially isolating individuals and communities. Concern is also raised by objectors regarding safety of the alternative, specifically Station Road section, as previously discussed. Network Rail acknowledges the alternative route is not ideal, but sees it as the only viable alternative given the safety concerns of the crossing and lack of a bridge. Network Rail state they support any action to improve the safety of Station Road. However, they reiterate the responsibility of the road safety lies with Wiltshire Council as Highway Authority. Section 118A2 provides that the order may extinguish the right-of-way on the crossing itself and for so much of the length as its authority deems expedient from the crossing to its intersection with another highway over which there subsists a public right-of-way. The route proposed to be extinguished is across the level crossing only. Section 118A4A provides that the Secretary of State or Authority must be satisfied that it is expedient to extinguish the path having regard to all circumstances. DEFRA government guidance states that this enables all relevant factors to be taken into account, including use currently made of the existing path, the risk of public continuing to use the path, the effect that the loss of the path would have on users of the public right-of-way network as a whole, opportunity for alternative measures to deal with the problem, and the cost of such alternative measures. As a result of this lengthy alternative route, concern is raised by objectors that more people will have no choice but to use a car for journeys they would normally have made on foot, which will result in extra traffic on already congested roads. Users include the vulnerable and encumbered, identified by Network Rail, may not have access to a car and would therefore require potentially expensive alternative transport to reach vital utilities such as the train station, shops, community centres or the health centre. Network Rail agrees that this is a popular route that provides convenient access to the town and local amenities. It is clear this is a highly valued crossing serving many residents. As a consequence, concern is voiced by objectors that closing the crossing will result in more trespass incidents as it provides such a valuable connection between communities. Objectors raise concern about the lack of evidence provided by Network Rail to demonstrate their case for stopping up the crossing. Some residents state they have lived near the crossing for a number of years and they have never witnessed any instance of misuse or near misses and have no recollection of accidents, injuries or fatalities at this crossing. In their response, Network Rail discussed the census method used at Penley Park Level Crossing, which is ongoing monitoring using CCTV reviewed throughout the year. Network Rail have provided a record of incidents report titled Recorded Incidents at Penley Park since 2022 onwards. However, the dates of the incidents recorded in this spreadsheet are from the 23rd of July 2007. There are 54 incidents recorded in that total. 26 of these incidents are prior to the Amazon Way development. There is then a break of 2 years in the incidents from the 13th of February 2018 to the 10th of December 2020, which would have been during the construction period of the development and when the level crossing was closed under a temporary traffic regulation order. Since 2020, there are 28 listed incidents at the level crossing. Incidents listed include level crossing failures, track defects, and animals online. There are 6 trespasser incidents listed from 2020. No near misses are recorded. Network Rail confirmed the camera at the crossing was not a permanent fixture. It is one the local level crossing manager of the area uses for census counts, which has been left on site permanently with complete signage since the beginning of 2025. So objectors have stated that Penley Park is a superior crossing with good access, an all-weather surface, good visibility and traffic light system that is clear and easy to use. The safety concerns and potential mitigations are addressed by Network Rail, who state that since the construction of the new housing, Network Rail have installed miniature warning lights and audible alerts at Penley Level Crossing, which is the highest level of technology available. Since the housing development, there have been a significant increase of use, including large proportions of vulnerable users, such as unaccompanied children, users with mobility impairment, aged users, and users encumbered with pushchairs, push bikes, etc. Network Rail suggests that due to the proximity of the housing to the level crossing, it is seen as an everyday feature which could result in a sense of complacency. Network Rail addresses potential mitigations as follows. Whistle boards are not permitted by the Office of Rail Regulation. There is a risk of misuse in urban settings if telephones are installed. Locking gates could result in trapped users causing a safety hazard. Network Rail have submitted 5 images of misuse of the crossing, including the image on the right. Objectors suggest that Network Rail should be educating the local community, particularly the younger generation, on the dangers of railway crossings, rather than closing the crossing and disadvantaging the community. Some objectors have suggested that a bridge should be provided if Network Rail are concerned about the safety of crossing, including residents that state properties were purchased based on the site plan dictating a bridge. Network Rail addresses the construction of a bridge in detail in their statement, where they confirm they support the installation of a bridge, but note the lack of progress by Wiltshire Council and a funding shortfall. Wiltshire Council's current position on the proposed road bridge from Main Way to Amazon Way is that it is not yet at a point where construction is confirmed. The road bridge would link the western end of Amazon Way to Main Way, shown on the attached plan. An initial option design for proposed structure was prepared during 2021, together with a high-level cost estimate. This identified a shortfall between the construction costs and the contributions received. More recently, Wiltshire Council have begun engaging with key stakeholders and, in tandem, refining the design to determine if the council can construct the bridge within the limitations and available funding. Within the Section 106 agreement for the development is a clause that if the road bridge is not delivered within 10 years from the date of payment, so by July 2033, the same contributions can be used to provide a footbridge in the same location. Notwithstanding this, as per the long-standing local plan, the council's intention remains to provide a road bridge with pedestrian cycle facilities. However, the extinguishment has been applied for without a bridge in place, so if the crossing is closed, the shortest alternative route would be the 1 kilometre route along Station Road, with the safety concerns already discussed. Section 118A(b) 4B, provides that the Secretary of State or authority must be satisfied that the arrangements have been made for ensuring that the order is confirmed, any appropriate barriers and signs are erected and maintained. Network Rail in their application has stated standard closure signs with the instructions demonstrating the diversion would be erected and maintained where required for a reasonable time following the closure of the footpath level crossing. The crossing would also be physically secured using appropriate materials in keeping with those already in place at the local area. Public health implications. The crossing is a heavily used and convenient active travel route. Open Spaces Society state in their objection, the Society submits that this closure is contrary to the public interests. It will discourage people from walking and force them into their cars, which is a clear disadvantage to their health and well-being, and damaging to their environment. If they have no car, they may not go out at all, which is also a severe disadvantage to them. Environmental and climate change impact of the proposal. As a result of a lengthy alternative route, concern is raised by objectors that more people have no choice but to use a car for journeys they would normally have made on foot, which will result in extra traffic on already congested roads. Equalities impact of the proposal. Wiltshire Council's Rights of Way Improvement Plan recognises the Council's duty to have regard to the Equalities Act 2010. As discussed in detail, the closure of the level crossing would have a detrimental impact on the connectivity of the communities on either side of the crossing, many of whom, as identified by Network Rail, are vulnerable and encumbered. This is due to the length of the shortest alternative route, the safety of the alternative route, and the likelihood it will decrease foot traffic and increase the use of motorised vehicles and isolate those who do not have access to a motorised vehicle. However, Network Rail consider this crossing to be a risk for the individual user, particularly the vulnerable and encumbered. Options for committee members to discuss. Option 1. If the decision of Wiltshire Council is that it will not progress the application, it will inform Network Rail at the earliest opportunity, providing reasons for its decision. If Wiltshire Council does not progress the application, Network Rail are able to apply directly to the Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs under Section 120 of the Highways Act 1980. The application and evidence will be assessed, and providing it meets the legal requirements, which would include evidence of significant safety issues at the crossing, such as multiple near misses or recent fatalities at the site and likelihood of repeat or increased occurrence, the application would be sent to the Planning Inspectorate for determination. Wiltshire Council would be consulted on the draft order stage and the subsequent published order stage. Should objections to the order be received, a decision would be made by the Planning Inspectorate via written representations, a public hearing, or a public inquiry. Or Network Rail could judicially review Wiltshire Council if it has been unreasonable or unlawful in its decision. Option 2, to make an order to extinguish part of footpath Westbury 15, subject to this application under section 118A of the Highways Act. If the order is objected to, it would be referred to the Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, who would appoint an inspector for the Planning Inspectorate for an independent determination of the order by written representations or holding a hearing or local inquiry. Network Rail has stated in their extinguishment application and subsequent paper there is now a serious risk of fatality if the level crossing is not closed due to the significant increase in users with a proportionally high number of vulnerable and encumbered users. However, as discussed, significant objection has been received to the proposal during the initial consultation. Therefore, it's proposed that members of the committee debate the merits of Network Rail's extinguishment application and to make a decision with clear reasons given on whether to refuse to make an order or make an order to extinguish Penley Park level crossing, footpath Westbury 15 part. I've bullet pointed the main arguments and we'll leave them on the screen to aid discussion. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much for that comprehensive report. Do I have any technical questions from members of the committee? With Councillor White first and Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. I just wanted to clarify, confirm a couple of things. How long has this crossing been open? Yes, I just wanted to confirm it. Thank you. And this is the only date.
Could we have that? Not everybody heard.
Oh, sorry, excuse me. 70, how long was it? 73 years. 73 years, was it?
73 years, yes. Mr. Morland gave that information. Yes, I believe it's a long time.
Okay, long enough. That's all I wanted to establish. Thank you. Second, do you have any other data or evidence of near misses other than the one that we've got? I'm sorry, I can't reference the page on figure 3, the breakdown of Network Rail record of incidents report. That's all we've got, is it?
I've submitted everything to committee that has been sent to me, so that's all the evidence that that's been
Okay,
put
I'm not
before
an
me.
expert on reading these kinds of reports, but I can't see any deterioration or, put it the other way, any increase in incidents based on this report over the last 20 years, more or less, that I've got in front of me. Last question, if I may, Chair. Are we aware of any changes in public liability? I understand Network Rail is liable for the crossing on the track and Wiltshire Council on the approach either side. Are you aware of any changes? The main statement by Network Rail is they're concerned about public safety. I just wondered if they're concerned about increase in public liability costs.
The crossing is the actual crossing, and the structures to the crossing are the responsibility of Network Rail, and the Highway Authority is responsible for the lead into the rights of way leading into up to the crossing point.
Thank you. I'm just looking for a reason for why everything has changed. All I'm hearing is there are more people living in the area, and therefore the assumption is that there are going to be more accidents or incidents when we can't see any trend after the previous development of an increase. That's all. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, and Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chairman. I don't know whether the officer can actually answer this, but I suppose now's the time to ask. What's the line speed along there? Is it the same in both directions?
My understanding is 100 miles an hour. I believe that's the case. Yes, I'm
So
getting nods. Yes,
So
thank you.
So that close to the junction, you're saying, or British Rail are saying, that the line speed is 100 miles an hour, that close to a junction, you know, the points at Westbury Station. Are they saying that trains come off of that line, off the main line, and come down the avoiding line at 100 miles an hour? I find that very I find that very surprising because you don't have points on the railway.
Just
that
for
can operate that.
clarification, it's the
Anyway,
bypass line.
that's fair enough. So you don't actually know what the line speed limit is. Because I understood there was a 40-mile-an-hour limit on the up track that's been there for a long time.
Please, I think people, you can add something in your public statements, but this is just members asking the officers questions.
Right, so we don't know what the speed limit is or what speed the trains go along there at. How many passenger trains a day use the avoiding line? You don't know, okay? How many goods trains a day use the avoiding line? You don't know, fair enough. How long, when the red light comes on at the crossing, how long does that come on for before a train passes?
I have used it when the red light came on. I think it was a good minute, maybe 2 minutes, I think. But it's oh, sorry, Network Rail can tell me.
So it takes, so you said it took you 17 seconds to cross the crossing, and you're saying the red light comes on 2 minutes before the train arrives?
Excuse me,
So-
this is just councillors asking questions here. You can add a response into your statement. That would work. Okay, so if you include that's fine. If I start being flexible, it falls apart.
Sorry, so you think the red light comes on 2 minutes before a train approaches, or before the train gets to the crossing, and it takes you it took you 17 seconds to cross. We're told that incumbent people could take twice as long, so they'd take 30 seconds to get across, well, say 35, 40 seconds to be generous. But you have a 2-minute warning before the train arrives. This all doesn't really make a lot of sense for what British Rail wants, or Network Rail, whatever it's called. But if you can't answer the questions, so be it. Thank you.
Yes, so they'll have heard that and be able to answer that during their response. Okay, Councillor Stokes.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if you could clarify just how many houses there are from the Amazon Way estate, and whether we know how many people, whether it's daily or yearly, if you have that figure, actually use that crossing.
Crossing numbers, I don't know. I believe it's regular. I know of one lady who wrote in as in objection. She's a young mother of 2 little ones, and she uses it 4 times a day to access the school. So there are, I think, if it's used not multiple times a day by a number of people, and the housing I think is 300 houses. Is that right, Stephen? Yes, 300 houses. Sorry, he's the planner that did the estate, so he knows it better than I do.
That's great. So roughly, we could probably assume that there's at least 2 people per house. So there's roughly about 600 people that could potentially use it. I'm just trying to figure out from the record of incidents, the percentage-wise of how many incidents there have been per year, and it comes out obviously quite low if you're taking it off roughly about 600 people. Obviously, even lower if it's a multiple household of 4 or 5. But thank you very much.
And Councillor Park.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and can I thank officers for their most comprehensive report. Seeking some clarity, and I think it was mentioned that there had been a sum of money on a 106 agreement for the provision of the bridge, and that, am I correct in thinking if that was not successful or provided, that money would be secured against a footbridge? And that there is
That's
a
correct,
time-
Councillor Parks.
That's
Yes,
right.
that's right. So the money has been secured for 10 years for a road bridge with pedestrian and cycle route. And that 10-year period is up in July 2033. And then then that money will roll into a footbridge at the same location. But the intention is to build that road bridge before this comes.
And well, that was perhaps my follow-on question is, and I guess that you would not be able to answer this, but there is clearly difficulties in provision of that footbridge due to a lack of substantial money in the construction.
Yes, from my understanding from the bridge engineer, there was a shortfall, and they're trying to refine the design so that we can find a way to build that bridge.
And if I may, do we have any indication of how far highways or the bridge engineer been reaching a conclusion on that at all?
I don't have a date for that, I'm afraid. No, I don't work in that team, but I don't have a date. I did ask, and that they've given as much as they can at this time.
Councillor Newbury.
Thanks, Chairman. We have a very long statement by Network Rail, starting on page 185. And it tells us quite a lot. And there are also things that it doesn't tell us. And I don't know whether officers are able to fill in any gaps. For instance, it doesn't tell us about any serious or fatal accidents on this level crossing. Is that because there aren't any, or that nobody knows of any? Can anybody fill me in on that point?
There's no recording of record of fatal accidents on that crossing that Wiltshire Council are aware of.
Or any minor injuries?
The statistics haven't shown any minor injuries, no.
That was one of the interesting things, the sort of dog that didn't bark in the night, I thought, about the Network Rail statement. Another point, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but they tell us that there used to be whistle boards at this junction, which presumably means they took them away. And then they say that drivers are only required to sound their horn where there is a whistle board. And they also tell us that the ORR will not allow them to install whistle boards at crossings where they are not already present. It's all a bit sort of a bit mysterious, this, but do we know, would it be open to Network Rail to instruct drivers, could anybody instruct drivers to blow horns if they felt that there was anybody in sight?
I'm afraid I don't know.
Okay, well that would, I suppose, be something for an inspector to ask Network Rail about if this ever gets in front of an inspector. And then I think my last question is about the comparative. Network Rail is alleging, it's claiming that the building of the recent development in between the railway lines has led to a significant increase in the usage of the level crossing. I mean, presumably officers are aware that this level crossing, when it was first built, was the main access to the Westbury marshalling yards, which they were at the time the biggest employer in Westbury by quite a long way before the cement works was built. And there were, I think, hundreds of people crossing the line on this level crossing back in the 40s and 50s. Can anybody tell us whether Network Rail is correct that there is more usage of the level crossing now than there was back then?
I don't know about the 40s, but I am aware that before the estate was built, it was a very popular route already. Up to 2016, there was a route that locals used to access Westbury train station. That subsequently got blocked off, and there was a DMMO for it. But I do know also that the fields were very well used for dog walkers. So it has been a popular level crossing for a number of years. I would assume that with the estate on the other side and accessing to schools and shops that has increased, but it was already quite a well-used level crossing.
Did Councillor Hawker, did you? Oh, okay, this is just technical questions, so I'll skip to that. When we get to the debate, you can make comments. Councillor Vaughan.
Thank you, Chairman. I know the situation very well, so I always try and grasp the basics of what I should really be judging my opinion on, or my final vote on. So my interpretation of section 118A allows local council to extinguish a public right-of-way that crosses a railway line, not a tunnel, not a bridge, if it appears expedient that the interest of expedient in the interest of public safety. So if I've interpreted that right, and do correct me if I'm wrong, if I consider then the new proposed route being potentially more unsafe than what's there now, then maybe it could be argued that you know, that it is more, you know, that it is unsafe, more unsafe than the railway crossing. Obviously, that's an argument to have, but a very important one. But I would say on the face of it, then it probably is. Come to where you say the under the road bridge, it was 700 mil wide, I think, where if you understand that a normal door size is 762 mil, that gives you some kind of idea of the narrowness of that. One other interpretation that I heard you say, and if you can explain to me further, this cul-de-sac in effect. So my interpretation of that would be, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I think it would apply in this case as well, that would that mean then that because if this was shut, that you would have to, the new route would be so inconvenient that it would tempt you to basically trespass? If that interpretation is right or somewhere near, then I would say in this instance that would come into play again, because the diversion is so long, then it would probably tempt you to, in some instances, to trespass. So it's just basically the second clarification on that cul-de-sac in effect. And as I say, if I've got that first interpretation right, and then I would argue that the second route, the diversion, could fairly be argued is probably more dangerous or as dangerous than the railway crossing. Thank you.
Yes, I think it could also be looked at that it could become a cul-de-sac route because of people on foot may well not be able to have the time to do what they would normally do if they were using that crossing, so they are forced into their cars, i.e. mothers with young children to school, etc. So it could be seen as a cul-de-sac because people just can't do on foot what they used to do with the level crossing. Also, that obviously that under the Station Road Bridge, that 700 mil is going to prevent certain prams, etc. And yes, it does talk about people trespassing if it does create a cul-de-sac, be more likely because of the connectivity, and there is a potential of it, but I think Network Rail will probably secure it quite severely. So I would have thought the cul-de-sac really comes into the fact that people will not be able to be on foot as much if they do close the crossing, and they will be forced into cars or not being able to access what they were accessing before anyway.
But that would be a fair argument that if, on the first point, that if I think that the second route or the alternative route is, if I judge it or we judge it or the argument judges it to be as dangerous, if not more dangerous than the crossing route, then I'd be on the right lines to make a decision from that.
If that's your interpretation, yes, yeah.
It's a lot of time.
Okay, Councillor White, then Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Joe. I just wanted to follow up on Councillor Park's question about money and bridges. So just bear with me for a moment. So we have some money in escrow. We don't know how much that is. Is that right? Do we have a figure for that currently? Okay. I can hear an echo behind me saying something. But
He's going to cover it in his talk.
Okay. The reason I'm asking the question, because my understanding is that if we can't get a road bridge together by 2033, the money would then revert to a pedestrian solution, which could be an underpass or a footbridge, and the rough costs at the moment of that would be 4 to 4.5 million. Is that right? Of the pedestrian option.
Sorry, there's enough information in what's been said. I don't think we go into the costs of different things. I don't think that's irrelevant.
I just wanted to clarify it because I'm considering something that I might want to propose regarding deferment. That's all. Thank you.
Councillor Phillips and Councillor Davis.
Yes, it's almost a comment, really. The alternative route seems almost less safe than the risk of leaving the crossing open due to the narrowness of the
I
pavement.
think that's
under
more
the bridge.
debate than a technical question,
Okay.
though, so we can bring that on later. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chairman, and I apologise for not doing the homework I was hoping to do on this one. Only there are councillors in this room that was actually at the planning application for the 300 houses that are now the other side of the railway line. And I was going to ask if anybody can tell me what was Networks Rail's did Network Rail have any objection? I know there was a talk about the crossing having to be stopped up during construction of those properties, but my point is, can I ask an officer with any knowledge if Network Rail made an objection to this crossing at the time? Now, I do appreciate there was also linked with that this thing about the road bridge going over the railway at another point, but that crossing was in place at the time of that planning application, and I'm sure Network Rail would have been a consultee, and I'm sure Network Rail would have made an observation.
It's all in Network Rail statements. If you start at page 185, Andrew,
Sorry.
you'll find it all there.
Okay, I think that concludes the technical questions. So we'll now move on to the public statements. And we have several people to talk. First will be Julie Wright, who's a local resident and an objector, then followed by Lisa Bullock, Network Rail, who's a supporter, Dan Hayes, Network Rail, who's a supporter, then Josh Murray from Network Rail, who's a supporter, then Philip Harcourt from Westbury Town Council, and then Councillor Boaz Barry, who's a Wiltshire councillor for a neighbouring ward, and Councillor Gordon King, who's a Wiltshire councillor for a neighbour ward, then the local member, Councillor Robert Smith. So the members of the public... I think 10 minutes before the start of the meeting is the deadline for asking to be included in the agenda. I think as we've got... They are apparently, yes.
Mr Morland, all comments are in the Appendix 1, so your objection is within Appendix 1.
Just have a quick look. If it's not there, I will let you speak. We can see it in the printed out versions we've got here, so we can show you that it is included. Councillor Clark, can you see it?
Just possibly to help you, Chairman, I'm just looking through the agenda papers. It just says members of the public are asked to register no later than 10 minutes. It doesn't say they have
Mandatory.
to register.
Yeah.
Just to let you know.
Thank you. Oh, have we ascertained whether it is actually there or not?
158 to 160.
158 to 160 on the... Okay, I think I will continue with the public statements. I've seen evidence here that it is included. Is it? What was your conclusion, Mr. Hawker? Councillor Hawker? What was, could you see it? Have you looked at page 158? I'll make the executive decision that he can have his 3 minutes and speak. Okay, it's quick. All right. Okay, so first up, Julie Wright, and there's a mic. Is there a microphone there? Oh, yeah, sorry, you can just use that one there, sorry. So start speaking at your leisure.
I speak as a resident of Westbury who uses this crossing on a very regular basis, either for leisure walking or to get to and from the station. I've witnessed the crossing being used by people of all ages and clearly for different reasons, all of which are an everyday part of life. I have never seen silly or reckless behaviour. I have only seen people exercising and, crucially, exercising their right to walk. I was born in the 1950s, and it seems to me that since that time we've done our very best to promote the use of cars to get from A to B, to the detriment and danger of those going on foot or by bike. Planners think primarily of roads to transport cars. Pedestrians, cyclists, buggy pushers, mobility scooter users all come an insignificant second. We're forced to make the best of it, often putting ourselves in danger. Network Rail cites fast trains on the line as a potential hazard to those who use the crossing. Trains are potential killing machines. Vehicles on the road, and every day, are also killing machines, and we know that this potential frequently and very sadly becomes reality. People are knocked down as they cross the road. They're sometimes knocked down whilst on the pavement. 2 ladies in their 70s tragically met this fate in Melksham only recently, resulting in the death of one and severe injury to the other. At school, parents in a hurry to get to work after drop-off fail to look in their mirrors and miss a small figure behind the car. We do not need more cars near schools. The proposed alternative to using this crossing is a horrible, busy, dangerous, and polluted road. There will be accidents, near misses, and worse. But for a vehicle to be a killing machine, it doesn't need to even touch anyone. After the death of 9-year-old Ella Roberta Adu Kissi Deborah in London in 2013, the second inquest found that she died from asthma contributed by excessive air pollution. Her campaigning mother, Great Ormond Street Hospital, and others have been trying to establish a legal right to clean air. We await this eagerly. The end result of closing Penley Park Crossing would most certainly put more cars on the road, more noxious gases in the air, and Network Rail is advocating putting our children into the thick of it. Closure would also curtail the exercise of people of all ages, last paragraph, last sentence, and limit the independence of those who choose not to drive. Non-car users have the absolute right to be taken into account in this decision, and Network Rail and all those involved should be championing, not denying, the right of people to engage in healthy, independent, active travel. Thank you.
Thank you. So, do you want to speak now? I'm assuming you're an objector.
Yes. Well, all I just want to explain is that I'm listed as objector number 13 on agenda page 114, and number 12 is Mr. Llewellyn, and number 14 is Hannah Stone. And you will find Mr. Llewellyn's objection on page 141 of your agenda, and you'll find Hannah Stone's objection on page 142 of the agenda. But mine has been left out, and since I gave a lot of information specifically on the questions that members have been asking about the history of this crossing, which I've been involved in over many years, I am very peeved about it, but I didn't want to take the time of the committee today because this matter will have to be there'll be a further consultation, whichever way it goes, whatever decision is, there'll be a further consultation to be had, and I was saving my time to speak when that happens.
Thank you. Yes, and it's not in the same order, but it is on 158 on the agenda. Thank you. Okay, he's had his chance to speak. So on to Lisa Bullock, who's a supporter Network Rail.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. My name is Lisa Bullock, Senior Town Planner at Network Rail. I'm here to support the proposed public right-of-way order relating to Penley Park level crossing. I want to focus specifically on the town planning background and the obligations that arose from the adjacent housing development. When the planning application for 300 homes at Amazon Way was submitted in 2016, Network Rail made it clear that the impact on the level crossing was a significant concern. We formally objected unless a robust mitigation was secured for the increased risk at the crossing. Our concern was not hypothetical. We anticipated and have seen a substantial increase in use, including by vulnerable and encumbered users directly as a result of the new development. The Council, in granting permission, recognised these risks. That is why the Section 106, dated the 20th December 2016, required the safeguarding of land for a new bridge at the crossing and secured a £2 million developer contribution towards its delivery. The agreement is explicit that the railway bridge means either a road bridge, or if that could not be delivered, a pedestrian or cycle footbridge. The Section 106 also requires no development takes place on the safeguarded land and that a link is provided from a Network Rail land to facilitate the bridge. The Council's aspiration has always been for a road bridge and pedestrian bridge, but the Section 106 provides a clear fallback. If the Council cannot secure additional funding for the road bridge within 10 years, the £2 million must be used for a pedestrian cycle footbridge. This was not an afterthought, it was a deliberate planning obligation negotiated to ensure that the increased risk from the new development would be mitigated and that the community would not be left with an unsafe or inadequate crossing. To be clear, the current situation at the crossing is not an unforeseen consequence. It was anticipated, discussed and planned for as part of the original planning process. The Section 106 agreement is the legal mechanism by which the Council accepted responsibility for delivering a safe alternative. The planning history here is absolutely central. The Council approved the development with full knowledge of the risks and with a clear obligation to deliver a bridge, either a road bridge or, failing that, a footbridge. The right-of-way order before you today is a necessary step in fulfilling those planning obligations and ensuring the community is provided with a safe, accessible and future-proofed crossing as was always intended. Thank you. And in response to the lady here, Julie, obviously being a railway, we obviously don't want cars on the road either, and providing an operational railway is essential. Okay.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll let you go over a little bit, but both went over a little bit. Okay, so, and thank you for that answer. Over to Dan Hayes, Network Rail.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Daniel Hayes. I'm a level crossing manager for Network Rail, and I'm here today in support of the proposed public right of order relating to Penley Park level crossing. I just want to discuss risk assessments that have been carried out by myself prior to the development at Amazon Way and after the development. So I first risk assessed the crossing in 2013, and I found that the crossing had a line speed in both directions of 100 mph. Due to poor sighting at the crossing for trains on approach to London, we did have whistle boards in place, but we found that the whistle boards weren't as effective as what we originally intended them to be. So a temporary speed restriction was in place to mitigate against that of 50 miles an hour. We also found as well that the crossing usage was six to 9 users a day, and also 3 to 5 cyclists a day. And then looking into 2016, we did implement a miniature warning light system to remove the need for the whistle boards, and also to restore the line speed back to 100 mile an hour in either direction. The miniature warning light system, the question was asked earlier what the warning time on that system was, is 24 seconds, and it also has an audible warning system there as well, which obviously, again, like I said, removes the need for the whistle boards. And the risk assessments between 2016 and 2023 shown an increase starting at 10 users a day and then going into 200 users a day, which is obviously a massive jump. And it wasn't just the amount of users, it was also the type of users. We found more what we describe as vulnerable users. So you could have young children using the crossing, parents with young children, elderly people, more dog walkers, and yeah, we also followed up on the census that we did with the 200 users by carrying out another census towards the end of 2024, going into January 2025. It did show a less amount of users, but the idea of this was to, get a better picture of the crossing, to look at seasonal variation. So when people are on holidays, i.e. Christmas periods, when places of employment are closed, and during non-school times, just like I said, to get a better picture of the crossing. But unfortunately, during this time, we did capture the photographic evidence of misuse of the crossing. So it was on sort of that basis as well where we predicted originally that we believed that the usage would increase, as well as the misuse and the different types of users. So that's why, with the consent of Wiltshire County Council Public Right of Way Department, we applied for the section 118A application to close the crossing. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Excellent. Bang on 3 minutes. And finally, Josh Murray. Sorry, Josh Murray, Network Rail.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Josh Murray. I'm one of 2 route level crossing managers for the Western Route at Network Rail. I'm responsible for managing level crossing risk for the west of the route. I'm here today in support of the proposed public right-of-way order for Penley Park, and I'd like to briefly outline the background to this site and why replacing the crossing with an alternative route is necessary. When the planning application for 300 new homes at Amazon Way was submitted in 2016, Network Rail identified the impact on the level crossing as a major safety concern. We made it clear that increased use, particularly by families, school children, and people with limited mobility, would raise the level of risk at this crossing substantially. These concerns have unfortunately been borne out. Since the development was completed, usage at Penley Park has risen sharply, as shown by our regular census data. With that increase, we've also recorded more incidents of misuse, near misses, and railway trespass. Not all of this is logged formally through our incident reporting process, as done by train drivers and signallers. A lot of these incidents have been noted by my colleague through his census data collection, which in turn informs his risk assessments. Each of these incidents represents not only a danger to the public, but also to potential risk to railway staff and the operations of the railway. In 2016, we installed the miniature red and green lights. This is the highest level of protection possible for a crossing of this type, short of closure. While they help to guide safe use, they can't prevent user mistakes or deliberate misuse. The reality is that this crossing now carries a level of risk that technology alone cannot manage safely. This is why the Section 106 agreement, which was signed in December 2016, requires land to be safeguarded for a bridge and secure £2 million from the developer contribution towards its delivery. As Lisa stated, the agreement explicitly states for a railway bridge, ensuring that this agreement was built into the planning process from the outset. However, despite over 8 years having passed, there are still no plans in place to deliver such a bridge. While the developer has provided both the funding and the land necessary to accommodate this infrastructure, the money is not allocated to any scheme which would ensure the crossing would be closed. Nevertheless, for us, doing nothing is not an option. In the absence of any meaningful progress towards delivery, we feel we are now forced to pursue a diversion order as the only available course of action to ensure public safety as per our obligations and upholds the original intent of the partnership. If no action were to be taken, we would need to consider the possibility of emergency speed restrictions to trains or potentially emergency closure to protect both users and train services. These would be measures that would cause a disruption for everyone. The proposed diversion avoids that outcome, focusing on delivering a proactive, permanent and positive solution rather than something that would be reactive in an emergency intervention. In summary, the Public Rights of Way order is a proportionate and responsible step that fulfills our legal duties at Network Rail and mitigates against foreseeable risk increases and supports the original planning commitments, and most importantly, ensuring that people can cross the railway safely now and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Councillor Philip Harcourt from Westbury Town Council.
Chairman, members of the committee, Westbury Town Council strenuously objects to Network Rail's proposal for a number of reasons. Westbury Town Council believes that Network Rail has failed abjectly to demonstrate that this closure is necessary, nor has it attempted to suggest any other means or actions to improve safety. We thought that one of the ways would be for drivers to use the horns, but as you've heard, Network Rail replied saying drivers are only required to sound their horns on the approach if a whistleboard is present, and whistleboards aren't present on the approach, and the ORR allow us only to install them, does not allow us to install them where they're not already present. This sounds like bureaucratic madness to me. So their solution to this is close the crossing. The case for stopping up seems to rely on partly on a fatality at Pusey on a crossing far inferior to the one on Oldfield Road in totally different circumstances. And this application seems a convenient way for Network Rail to achieve their target on crossing closures. They've talked about the surveys they carried out, and they carried out surveys in August 2023 during the school holidays, and bizarrely, one from the 21st of December to the 12th of January, when not only were schools on holiday, but people aren't at work, Westbury Station was closed for 3 weeks. So it just seems bizarre that they've submitted that sort of evidence to this application. The pedestrian crossing point has been there for a long time and was made a level crossing in order to facilitate the Westbury avoiding line, but the footpath well predates the railway line. If something needs to move, maybe it's the avoiding line. Perhaps it could be moved and replaced by putting in a fourth platform at Westbury Station to benefit the town and allow the removal also of the low rail bridge over Station Road, which creates highways issues. We're told that the crossing is now seeing a large amount of use by vulnerable and encumbered users. So the solution proposes sending these vulnerable and encumbered users on a detour of 1 kilometre on a dangerous route. Alternative routes are frankly dangerous. Station Road footpath is inadequate, particularly where it passes under the rail bridge. Major improvements to pedestrian routes in Station Road would be required, and this would come at a huge cost to Wiltshire Council. We're told that the diversion at the crossing will have a substantially positive effect on the safety of users, but a negligible effect on the enjoyment of the local public path network. This is possibly one of the most fatuous and self-serving claims that they've made. Network Rail make a lot about the possible bridge over the railway line at the end of Main Way. If this council proceeds with the closure, they should only do so with a firm and binding commitment to build the Main Way bridge prior to closure. Perhaps Network Rail will provide the additional funding. Westbury already suffers from infrastructure that creates physical barriers within the community. It has the A350, but is the only Wiltshire town that has the trunk road running through it and still not has been afforded a bypass or 2 or 3. The railway lines are already a physical barrier, and yet last year this council exacerbated this by transferring a significant part of the town to the parish of Haywood, including which is where the Westbury trading estates already are. We've seen Network Rail's own statistics on the incidents on the line. It's very noticeable that 80% of the incidents are matters that aren't to do with the public, but that are to do with failure by Network Rail in its operational maintenance teams. We therefore implore this committee not to further preside over the additional partition of Westbury Town. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, and now I'll go to local adjoining member, Councillor Boaz Barry.
Thank you, Chair. Today I stand before you and ask you to refuse Network Rail's application to extinguish Penley Park level crossing. This crossing is not just a path, it is a vital lifeline. It connects the residents of the Spinnaker estate to essential amenities such as the GP surgery, local schools, and other key services. Without it, the estate becomes even more isolated. This is also true for the whole west of Westbury, who heavily rely on the crossing to reach the train station. Network Rail's proposed diversion is over 1 kilometre long, but it is not simply the distance that is the problem. The alternative route is unsafe. The pavement under the bridge at Station Road is so narrow, it barely accommodates a pushchair, let alone allows pedestrians to cross safely. Parents with young children will be forced onto this dangerous stretch, or else onto the opposite side of the bridge, where they must cross one of Westbury's busiest roads without a safe pedestrian crossing, only to have to cross it back again less than 100 metres later. We must be realistic about the consequences. Many residents will simply choose to drive instead, adding more traffic to the already congested Oldfield Road area. I am not blind to the long-term need for change. A bridge must be built, so ultimately the crossing can be closed safely. But Westbury was pledged a connecting bridge from Mingway to Amazon Way, a project that would not only provide a safe pedestrian crossing, but also drastically relieve the traffic congestion across the Oldfield Road area. That is the investment Westbury deserves. To spend £4 to £5 million on a footbridge now, when new Section 106 funding from the proposed Mingway development may soon provide the means for a comprehensive solution, would be nothing more than shortchanging the people of Westbury. We must press ahead with the Mingway Bridge as the true alternative. Westbury needs connection, not isolation. It needs a bridge, not a council that chooses to close vital corridors of our town. I urge councillors to stand with residents and vote against this plan and keep Westbury connected. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And on to Councillor Gordon King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to start by giving you a little bit of a history lesson in as much as that I am a former railway patrolman, and the route between Fairwood Junction and Market Laverton used to be my patrol route, which included the Westbury Avoiding Line and the crossing at Penley. And I did that for 8 years. And I can tell you that during that time, the line speed of the avoiding line was 75 miles an hour, owing to the fact that it is not continuously welded rail, but it is jointed track with very low high-speed curves along, especially towards Fairwood Junction. But nevertheless, I'm here today to formally object to the proposed extinguishment of footpath 15, which crosses Penley Park level crossing. This application is made under Section 118A of the Highways Act 1980 and Section 53A of the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981, which seeks to remove a vital public right-of-way, one that has served the community for generations. In fact, for 93 years. 93 years. Let me be clear, this is not merely a matter of a path closure, it is a matter, as been ably said before, of community connectivity, accessibility and fairness. Footpath is heavily used by residents of Amazon Way, as has been said, and surrounding areas. It provides direct access to the Westbury train station, Whitehorse Health Centres, local schools and nurseries, shops, parks and recreation areas, including the lake. Network Rail census data, as Mr. Harcourt said, underrepresents usage. Their survey is conducted during the school holidays and in a period when the train station was closed for 19 out of 23 days. It is not representative of the normal footfall and undermines the validity of their safety case. While safety is paramount, and we would all agree with that, the proposed alternative route, which adds over 1 kilometre to the journey, disproportionately affecting vulnerable users, that is the elderly, the disabled, parents with children with pushchairs, children walking to school and commuters. This detour is not just inconvenient, it is exclusionary. It creates a barrier to essential services that undermines the principle of equitable access. During the planning process for the adjacent housing, as we have heard, a bridge was promised. A £2 million Section 106 contribution was secured, yet no bridge has materialised. Network Rail now claims that the cost has risen to over £5 million and the council has no timetable for funding that plan. If safety is a concern, then build the bridge. Do not punish the public by removing a vital right of way. Legal and procedural concerns. Under Section 118A, extinguishing must be expedient and in the interest of public safety, but the law also requires consideration of the extent to which the path is used, the effect upon the land served by the path, and the availability of an alternative route. This proposal fails all three tests. The path is well used, services are key destinations, and the alternative is woefully inadequate. My conclusion, therefore, is that I would urge this committee to reject the plan, the extinguishment order. Let us not allow flawed data and broken promises to serve a vital link in our community. Let us instead invest in safe, inclusive infrastructure that protects public rights and promotes accessibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. And finally to Councillor Robert Smith, who's local member and can talk as long as he wants within reason.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Committee. This is another classic application, I think, where lack of foresight and yet another damaging thing to Westbury's very, very damaged infrastructure. The area concerned at the moment has got many, many, many problems with the roads, the railways, and all of the myriad of things. May I say as well, I wouldn't be sat here at all, none of us would, we wouldn't be having this discussion if we keep harping back to the famous bridge that should have been built, that's never been built. The promised road bridge joining Main Way to Spinnaker Estate is absolutely the vital thing to all of us. If the committee should decide to remove this valuable asset from the residents, it's just another stab in the back for Westbury's residents, really, at the end of the day. It's something that there seems to be very, very, very deep-seated feelings amongst the local communities that this is just another thing that if we lose it, it's just another piece of Westbury that's just been taking a kicking, if you like. We must also be mindful, as everybody has noted as well, that if we close the crossing, the alternative routes are appalling. They are really, really bad. I've walked it 2 or 3 times myself. I've also carried out surveys on a number of occasions in Oldfield Road now on the traffic issues that we've got there. And at 8:30 in the morning, when most people are using, or at 5:30 in the evening, when most people are using these crossings and that, it just beggars belief. There's so much traffic in that locality. It's where it all gathers, especially in the Oldfield Park and Station Road. you need to cross the road at least 4 times to get to Spinnaker or to the railway station if you don't use the level crossing. Also, as has been quite clearly pointed out, the crossing's been there nearly 100 years, bless it. 93 years and not a single fatality, not a single, serious accident. So why Network Rail are so keen to remove it, I don't know. I mean, I get the argument, we want the bridge. That is the key thing, I think, that we're all in agreement with. The other thing that nobody seems to have pointed out at the moment is we've got yet another 365 houses due to be built on Main Way. There is a current planning application in at the moment for those houses, which generally means there's going to be yet another 1,000 people living on another adjacent estate within 100 yards of that level crossing. So yet more people are going to want to use it, and that consequently is probably going to put another 500 cars on the road. So again, I'm going to harp back one more time, we need that bridge. I do understand that there is going to be some further sill payments put aside by Persimmon for the Main Way estate that could be added to the coffers for the bridge. But at the end of the day, on my closing thing, we just need that bridge. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And yes, the bridge is the obvious solution, not within our power to do anything about that, except for the local councillors to campaign for it. I'll hand back to the officer if you've got anything to comment.
I don't have any further comments, thank you.
Now I will ask.
I could just clarify, I haven't brought an order to committee to decide, so this is just an application. If you decide that you don't want to take that application forward, that is the end of this process. So as Mr. Morland suggested that there would be another consultation, but not for this particular application, and another application would need to be made.
So we can either accept or refuse this, move it forward or not. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chairman. I've just trying to seek some clarification. In the past, we've always had to come up, if we didn't agree with an application, we always had to come up with a sort of, should we say, a legally binding reason why we didn't agree with it. But are you saying, or sorry, not are you saying, but Chairman, are we being told today that we can simply record a vote of we don't agree with the application and that's it?
I will need reasons for you to decide that you don't want to take that application forward. That will be the case, yes. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Newbury.
Yeah, I mean, clearly we need to, as spelt out at the end of the report, we need to avoid acting unlawfully or unreasonably from the point of view of a possible judicial review. Though I have to say, as the applicants have said in their open forum speeches, that they will take this further, and one of them referred to the Transport and Works Act 1992 order. I mean, that is the obvious way for them to go, isn't it? I mean, a judicial review, they would have to show that we'd acted unreasonably and unlawfully, and whereas the alternative order, they simply apply for it and it goes through the due processes. So I'd be very surprised if we got challenged, but there we are. No harm in us giving. I mean, I would have thought the reason to give would be on reading the officer's report. We have a very full and detailed officer's report here. On reading the officer's report and the statement of Network Rail, decision of the committee was as follows. I can't see that we need to start cherry-picking reasons out of the mass of objections, because the moment we cherry-pick any particular objections, we're discarding the others. So I think simply referring to the report is and the statement of Network Rail and others is probably the way to do it. If we're in debate now, Chairman, I will just say that I was quite disappointed by.
I think we need to move something first for in debate.
Okay, well, I'll move that we, on reading the officer's report and the statement of Network Rail and others, that the decision of the committee is not to make an order, I think probably leave it at that. I was just going to say, I was a bit disappointed in the contributions of Network Rail. I mean, we had an officer who had conducted risk assessments. He had decided many years ago that they should decrease the speed limit from 100 miles an hour to 50 and put up whistle boards which required the engine drivers to sound their horn. And then somebody else had decided later to increase the, you know, they were so worried about the possibility of a fatal or serious accident here that they decided to increase the speed limit from 50 to 100 and to take the whistle boards away so that the drivers did not have to sound their horn. And it does really make a nonsense of this whole process, I think.
I was thinking from the residents' point of view, the trains going off every so often when they drove through there relative to the actual crossing itself making a noise, which it does, is a much more preferable solution. Councillor Clark.
So, Chairman, I'm happy to second it if you haven't got a second yet.
Councillor White already seconded. I took that on board while Councillor Newbury was still talking. Does anybody else want to say something to this, the debate? Councillor Vaughan.
Thank you, Chairman. There's not going to be very much sort of coherent connection and things I say here. From the clarification of the Highways Act, then I think I do think it's fair to say that the alternative route is going to be, you know, as dangerous, if not more dangerous than the railway crossing. I have to say that, though, that I think Network Rail make a pretty decent argument. I mean, the way they see it is that we have asked for a bridge, made it very clear, and one hasn't appeared. So one of the questions I would ask is, and it might sound an ignorant question, but who actually is responsible for a bridge? Because I'm reading here, Network Rail objected to housing development unless mitigated by a bridge. I've also noted somewhere where properties were purchased on site, plans, etc., that showed a bridge. So they've been treated quite unfairly. I think now Network Rail have done as much as they could to say that, you know, we need a bridge here if these houses are going to be built. Wiltshire Council say it's aspired to a road bridge, which doesn't mean a great deal to me. So I suppose I really do have sympathies every way. So I guess if there is something coherent, I'm saying is, could someone help me and tell me who is ultimately responsible in providing this bridge?
Yes, so we are. And the conditions in the original planning application are that of it's 10 years, wasn't it? So that if we haven't put it in 10 years, the monies that we've raised so far for that need to go into a footbridge. Okay. So it's Wiltshire Council Highways.
Okay. So if we got, and again, I'm not too sure of the details. So if we got £2 million from the the 106 money last time, so then is it then our fault that we haven't asked for enough money, or can we not get enough money out of that? Just trying to learn.
It's almost, I know it's of relevance for the long term, but it's not at the moment. They want to close it off now. There is no bridge. So longer term, that is what the ultimate solution that will keep everybody happy is. But that's not something that you know we're really debating. But yeah,
okay. I'm literally just trying to conclude.
Councillor King.
Thanks.
Oh. All right, very quickly.
Christopher, the money, £2 million was given and is index linked, so it probably has grown a bit. But as Robert has said, future housing development in the area will make further contributions, which should secure the building of the bridge. So, you know, just time. That's all you have to give is time. It's coming on along the way. Hey?
Chair, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
But I'm having great difficulty.
Guys, yeah, just a quick input was fine. I shouldn't have really been that flexible because you're not on the committee. Councillor Park.
Sorry, Chair. Could I ask members or those speaking to speak towards the microphone because.
Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chairman. I'll get back to the motion. I'm quite happy to support this. I know it sounds awful to say that we're not aware of any accidents or fatalities on this crossing. And those of us that have been around long enough will probably realise that when we complain about roads going through our divisions, that we want something to be done about it, we get the answer from Wiltshire Council highways officers. Oh, well, there's been no fatality. It's an awful thing, but until it happens, you can't say it's going to. It hasn't, and God forbid it ever does, but so far it hasn't. I thank the Network Rail chap for saying what he understood the line speed to be, but again, the reason why I would support this refusal, we know nothing about the number of trains that use this. Is it 2 trains a day? Is it 50 trains a day? How many of them are goods trains? Because presumably they only operate about 50, 60 miles an hour. If it's a quarry train, it's probably even less than that. We really haven't got in my opinion, I haven't got the information here to support the request for the abandonment of the public right of way. So I will be supporting the refusal put forward by Councillor Newbury.
Yeah, I think that's we can't do our own risk assessment because we don't have enough data, is essentially what you're saying. I've been advised that we should give reasons for objection, and I would propose to Councillor Newbury that the objector points that are currently showing up there, those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, cover the type of things that we're not happy with about this closure.
Let me just have time to read through them.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I go with this. My big concern in defence of the council, though, would be, as was said by the local member, Network Rail do make an extremely good play. And the point I raised, didn't do it very well, admittedly, was that they predicted this was going to happen back in 2016. And, you know, they objected to the closure of this crossing then. The evidence in my book is fairly strongly weighted on behalf of Network Rail from their previous objections. I'll just leave it at that. I'm going to go along with this because it's a head and heart one, and I certainly wouldn't want to sacrifice to walk around a mile to just go across a route, a crossing I could do in 20 minutes. That's head and heart. What we've got to say is we don't know what the inspectorate is going to be like on the day, and they work on evidence like we should work on evidence. And Network Rail's evidence, in my opinion, is fairly strong.
Yeah, I think ideally if we could go back in time, actually the conditions on Wiltshire Council to get that bridge done should have been a bit tighter. Yes, we're still in a debate. Sorry, yeah, Councillor White and Councillor Vine.
Excuse me, sorry, Councillor Davies. So when you're talking about the evidence, are you referring to the previous evidence that was submitted in the planning application, or what's before us today?
May I answer that, Chair, through you?
Yeah.
No, I was just going on the fact that as part of this application, Network Rail's submission states the points of what was their concerns when the extra 300 houses were built back in 2000, went through this committee back in 2013, and we didn't actually list. Well, we could say I'm not going to say we didn't listen to that. We approved that. I don't think it went to appeal. I think it was, correct me wrong, I think we approved it. We didn't reject it and it had to go to appeal. Because at the time of 2016, I believe it had quite a lot of benefits to the thing, particularly the bit about the bridge. However, Network Rail, in their submission to this item now today, had virtually back in 2016, in my opinion, predicted we would be in this position that we're in today.
Can I come back?
Yep, Councillor White and then Councillor Vine.
Yes, I understand that, Councillor Davis, very clear. But I wasn't there at that original 2016 decision. I'm just based on the evidence in front of me, and I don't see any evidence for an increase in risk, apart from an increase in numbers of people on the new developments. That's all. So I don't see the evidence.
Councillor Vine.
This afternoon, I read through much of the evidence, and as many of you know, I'm new to being a councillor, but plainly, many of the people who are objecting locally also finish with, it's time we had a bridge, what about the bridge? And so is there any way we can incorporate something around that issue at the bottom of the list of objections that we have? Can we add something? There's a lack of evidence provided by Network Rail to demonstrate the case for stopping up the crossing, which we acknowledge, but many of the people that use the crossing acknowledge they would like the bridge.
I think as a planning committee, we can write to our highways department saying we're disappointed at the lack of progress of the bridge, and that would have helped in this circumstance. So apply what pressure we can. Councillor Parks.
Thank you, Chair. I'm looking at the reasons for the objections highlighted up there, and I will defer to the proposer and seconder, but I just wonder, I'm a feeling that where it says that the alternative route is 1 kilometre longer and unsuitable, and we have heard, whether that's a strong enough word, but I just think to say it's unsuitable when we've heard how perhaps hazardous, dare I say, unsafe, but it's a balance, and I will defer to my proposer on that one. I do wonder, talking about the bridge also, whether that might be an informative when we reach a decision on this. Thank you.
Councillor Newbury.
Well, Chairman, if the secretary is happy, I would certainly be happy to adopt the right-hand column, the 5 points listed there as the main points of objection. I don't think I would want to beef up what's said about the alternative route, because clearly that is a balanced judgment of the report. And if we were to say that it's dangerous, what we're saying is that Wiltshire Council is at the moment maintaining a dangerous pedestrian route alongside quite a busy main road. So I think to go further and to say that we've got a dangerous, I think we better stick to that. I wouldn't want to go, I mean, maybe we could, after dealing with this report on this application for an order, we could then take a decision that we wanted to ask you to write to the portfolio holder, the cabinet member for planning, to draw attention to the lack of a bridge. But I think part of the problem here, and I'm looking at the members who've raised this, is that to some extent, Network Rail is misunderstanding the position over the bridge, the road bridge, the one at the end of Main Way. That goes back to all the way to the 1980s. It was developed as planning policy of West Wilts District Council. It was to be funded by development on both sides of the railway. On this side, the housing development, which is now the Lee Park estate, and on the other side of the railway, there was a large employment allocation, and there was to be a contribution from both sides. The employment allocation belonged to Network Rail. It was land owned by the railway, and they did nothing about developing it for many, many years. And in the end, we changed our planning policy to turn that into housing land, so that the housing land would provide more money towards the cost of the bridge. Network Rail then sold the land for not very much money, and it went through a whole series of owners. And when it finally came to us for planning permission for housing, the people who'd then bought it had paid so much money for it that they were able to persuade Alistair Cunningham to reduce the amount of money that they were going to put towards the bridge, because otherwise the development would never happen. So it's a really long run. This saga has been going on for well over 25 years. And I have to say that Network Rail somebody at Network Rail understands it a lot better than the officers who are doing their best to cope with a difficult argument today. But there we are. I think that the bullet points on the right-hand side there are helpful. I think, are officers happy with those exactly as they stand? Is the
Yes,
seconder happy?
if
Is
the-
the seconder happy with them?
Very happy, Councillor Newbury.
Okay, well, let's leave it there then.
Right, so anybody else want to debate that any further? So I'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? Show of hands. I think that's
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's unanimous, Chair.
unanimous. Right.
But could we minute that it's unanimous? I think that sort of
Yeah.
helps us a little bit.
Yes, yeah. And then that brings us on to the second idea that I write to the relevant cabinet member to push for the bridge. So all those in favour of that? Okay. That was unanimous again. I'm going to propose a 5-minute break for somebody who's been drinking coffee all day. But please, just 5 minutes, then back, and we'll move on to the next item. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Justice.
All right. But I will just pause just to take, there's some handouts from those supporting the application. In fairness, as we just had a handout from those objecting. So these are just some pictures of how it looks. This is a retrospective application and the works have been done. Okay, right. So we're now going to consider 24 Eastbourne Road, Trowbridge, and I invite Stephen Sims to take us through the application. Over to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Chair. So the application address is 24 Eastbourne Road, Trowbridge. The application is for a change of use from a C4 to a C4 use to a sui generis HMO with occupancy increasing from 6 to 8 residents. Recommendation is to approve subject to conditions. Before we go any further, I've got 2 corrections to make to the agenda, to advise councillors of 2 corrections to the agenda report. Page 207, which is the first page, so the block of information where it says proposal. The proposal on the report states change of use from C4 to sui generis HMO with occupancy increasing from 6 to 9 residents. That's not correct. It should be 6 to 8 residents, and 8 residents is referenced throughout the body of the report. In addition, page 219, the end of the report where it details conditions. For some reason, some additional wording seems to have appeared in condition 3. The additional words perpetuity and shall in the centre of the condition should be taken out, so it should read as follows: that for the avoidance of any doubt, the 2 off-road parking spaces as detailed on approved plan drawing number 67309 revision B shall be kept free of obstruction and made available for the parking of private motor vehicles for the occupants of the HMO, hereby approved, and these spaces shall remain in perpetuity for the lifetime of the permission. As stated, those 3 words seem to have just appeared in this, have been left in the condition, so just to correct that. So, site constraints, 24 Eastbourne Road is a detached 2-storey dwelling currently in use as a 6-bedroom house in multiple occupation. It's located within the principal settlement of Trowbridge. Just to the northwest of the site, I'll move the red dot on the plan, numbers 3 to 13 Eastbourne Road are Grade 2 listed buildings. The site, the whole of the area, is located within the grey hatched zone, which is a medium risk for increased recreational impacts pursuant to the recently revised Trowbridge and Westbury bat mitigation strategy. To summarise, this scheme is seeking planning permission to change the use of the property from a 6-bed, 6-person house in multiple occupation, HMO, to a 7-bed, 8-person HMO. The only alterations proposed are those at 2nd floor level to provide the additional bedroom. Therefore, the scheme proposes only 1 additional bedroom and 2 additional occupants over and above what already has permission. So what we've done here is just provide a slide that shows you where the site is in relation to the town centre, because this will come up in terms of sustainability. So the application site is located approximately 10 minutes walk from town centre facilities and approximately 15 minutes walk from the Trowbridge train station. In addition, just near the existing roundabout off County Way, there is a Tesco Express literally within a few minutes walk of the application site. In addition, I noted that when walking around the site, that there's been a lot of works, including pedestrian and cycling improvements that have taken place at the County Way Hilperton Road roundabout, which obviously improve access from the town centre to the actual site itself, widening the pavements, increasing visibility at roads and so on. So this is the proposed site plan. The scheme includes cycle and bin storage to be located at the rear and side of the property. 2 off-road parking spaces are proposed. And as stated in the corrections, condition 3 requires that these parking spaces remain in perpetuity. Due to the sustainability of the site, as detailed on the previous slide, we talked about location proximity to town centre, it is considered 2 off-road parking spaces are sufficient for the development, in this case, in this location. To reiterate, the scheme proposes 1 additional bedroom and 2 occupants. So what we have is some plans of the ground and first floor. To advise, there's no changes to these rooms. The only alterations proposed are to the second floor, which is a storage area currently, and it is being converted to a bedroom. So as you can see, this slide shows the property itself, 2-storey detached property. Eastbourne Road is here, it goes round the corner. And as stated, the scheme includes a 7th bedroom in the roof space. And no other alterations apart from internal alterations are proposed. To show some of the parking restrictions on site, we have Eastbourne Road, Eastbourne Gardens. So the application building is in the distance there. So this is Eastbourne Road, showing you the yellow lines, and the photograph to the south is from the other direction, showing the yellow lines of Eastbourne Gardens turning into Eastbourne Road. So we've also showed some of the parking problems in the area. This is Eastbourne Road. So the application property would be on the left in this photograph. As you can see, yellow lines and obviously relatively congested parking in the area. I believe this photo was taken probably about somewhere between 10 and 11 in the morning, with cars parked up on the pavement, and I believe the photograph below is just showing it from the opposite direction. Off-road parking. This is the parking space off Eastbourne Gardens. As you can see, it would require crossing the pavement to reach that space. The parking space is shown from 2 different directions. As advised previously, we've conditioned that the 2 parking spaces should remain in perpetuity. As you can see from that photograph there, you can see the blue car where one of the parking spaces is located, with the red Mini to the left. So in summary, the proposal is seeking planning permission to change the use of the property from a 6-bed, 6-person HMO to a 7-bed, 8-person HMO. The only alterations proposed are those to provide the additional bedroom at second floor level. Therefore, the scheme really is for 1 additional bedroom and 2 occupants. So just to reiterate on the whole, so the assessment really is for the additional bedroom and 2 occupants. As stated, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Okay, right. So we move to technical questions. You're framing this as the difference between the permitted development of 6, a multiple occupancy for 6, to adding 2 more to 8.
Yes.
That's what the actual application is for. From the residents' perspective, a year ago, what was this building?
I don't have the details of when it was converted to a HMO, but I assume it was a residential property at some point. And in the recent past, I believe it's become a 6-person HMO using permitted development rights.
For those new to the planning committee, under permitted developments, any house can be converted to a HMO of up to 6 people without the need for a planning application.
That is correct, as long as it meets the floor space, the standard floor space measurements.
Yeah, and this can. Yep, no, I'll move that till later. If someone had called for an Article 4 over the area there, that could have affected this such that you would need planning permission for.
Yeah, and Article 4 effectively just removes certain permitted development rights, whatever the Article 4 actually refers to. So, for example, if you wanted to put a blanket Article 4 over sections of Trowbridge that removed the, I can't remember, I think it's Class L permitted development rights, which allowed that HMO conversion, then what it would mean is that they would need to submit a planning application and it would still be assessed accordingly, but it would mean that it can't be done under permitted development rights.
Yeah, thank you. I think in Trowbridge we're seeing gradually more applications like this coming in, so I think it could be something we might consider in future. Other questions from me? The sustainability and sort of distance to the sound centre is very critical in terms of determining whether we demand a certain amount of parking. And there is no map having asked for that defines the line of where that is. But in the paperwork here, you're saying that there was an appeal that was lost on a similar property, and I think it's worth investigating that or explaining that a little bit more, as a lot hinges on that.
Yes, Chair. So in the report, we do mention an appeal that that wasn't supported on parking grounds, but I think we won the appeal on other issues. So it was just an appeal for a property approximately here, I believe. So it was a recent appeal in terms of 2019, Old Mill, Ashton Street in Trowbridge, which I've marked on the plan so you can see where it is. It is on the town centre side of the town centre. It was for a development for 3 additional 1-bed apartments to be attached to an existing apartment block. Overall, it would have required, I believe, 19 parking spaces for the whole scheme if you complied with council parking standards, but it was short 10, so only 9 spaces proposed. So the inspector stated in summary that whilst the proposal would be considered less than that required by the transport plan, from the evidence submitted, which was that appeal, he thought it was adequate for the dwellings proposed. So just an example that we are accepting fewer off-road parking spaces for certain schemes. And to clarify, we have minimum parking standards for residential development. So a property of 4 or more bedrooms should in theory have 3 off-road parking spaces maximum. But we are proposing that the 2 off-road parking spaces in this location at present are acceptable for this scheme because of its proximity to the town centre facilities, including transport links. And like I said, there's a Tesco Express just down the road. And obviously, I did a walk from the town centre in front of the town hall to the site. It was during midday, and it took me less than 10 minutes walking at a reasonable pace. So what we're arguing with, in this case, why we don't think the full 3+ parking spaces required is because of its sustainable location and proximity to the town centre facilities.
Okay. I looked through the Old Mill application, and the way I'd read it, they had 12 spaces marked out. It originally had 16 bedrooms, the development there, and it increased by 3 bedrooms, so that made it up to 19 bedrooms with 12 parking spaces. If you apply that same ratio to the 7 bedrooms in the new one, then this particular development should have 4.5 houses if it was for like. That's just the way I saw the figures. That particular property is also, say, the other side of County Way, and very closer to the town centre. There are two new developments that have happened in that exact same area since then. MacDonald Court, which has adequate parking for all the houses there, and also at Courtfield House, the Courtfield Garden development, which we insisted on having housing with decent parking as well, even though those are closer to the town centre. I'm sorry, these are observations rather than technical questions, but I find it very difficult to judge where the sustainable area is. Sorry.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think the point that we're making in the report and using the appeal decision referred to highlight that is that both local authorities, should we choose, and certainly central government planning inspectors when considering appeals, do apply quite a bit of tolerance to any non-compliance with parking standards. The whole thrust of local plans, and certainly the MPPF, is about moving towards sustainable transport, and so providing lots of parking spaces, you know, it builds in car use to development. So under providing, you know, if that is tolerated, can also push people towards more sustainable forms of transport, especially when they're in locations such as this one in close proximity to the town centre. And certainly if there is a non-compliance with parking standards, you then have to go to that extra point, which is therefore what is the harm. And I think here, because either this council or the previous council has done its job and protected junctions with lots of double yellow lines, it's hard to see where if there's an under provision here and the what's before us here, which of course is 1 room, potentially 2 extra people, the impact of that on the area, what would be the harm to both amenity and road safety? Because here, as you can see just on the image that's on the screen at the moment, but also many others, because there's a lot of double yellow lines in the area, any kind of parking on street would not be in a way that would be to the detriment of highway safety, because those junctions are really well protected by double yellow lines. So, you know, in summary, it's about there is a inbuilt tolerance to any under provision of parking on site now, and also the committee would have to demonstrate the harm if it was objecting on that ground.
Yeah, I open the floor to others for questions. Councillor Newbury.
I'm kind of struggling to understand the geography of how this is going to be lived in. We have quite not exactly a small house, but a sort of medium-sized, what is it, sort of 1920s kind of house. And that is now 6 bedrooms with 2 bathrooms, which presumably they're sharing the 2 bathrooms. And then at the back, we have a 7th bedroom, which is marked as a studio, and that is accessed off a kitchen breakfast room. But do they all have the use of the kitchen breakfast room? I mean, how does it work? Can somebody tell me? Or is that a sort of separate dwelling at the back? None of the bedrooms has any living rooms or any kitchens, or how does this work? This is a house of multiple occupation. Do we have any control over how many people can live in each bedroom?
So,
I mean,
sorry.
it reminds me of, you know, tenements in the old-fashioned cities. You'd have a whole family of mother and father and 6 children living in 1 room. And I'm just wondering, how can we be sure that this is going to be lived? I mean, presumably they're mostly bedsits, are they? And do the bedsits have the use of the kitchen or not?
Yeah, I mean, just to reiterate, obviously this application that is already a six-bed HMOs. That's not something we're assessing at this point. The only difference is that the second floor is becoming a additional bedroom with the occupants, however they want to arrange their sleeping arrangements in the flat, is going from 6 to 8. So obviously the arrangement and layout of the rooms is all dealt with by our HMO licensing team. I would state that the back room, yes, it looks like a studio flat, and I can only advise, but you're correct. That's the way these HMOs are. They're a bedroom with some facilities, with everyone having access to the communal areas of a kitchen. I mean, I lived in things like this when I used to live in London as an ex-student.
So the question really is, we've got a sort of house at the front, which at the moment is 5 bedrooms, and it's all bedrooms plus 2 bathrooms. And the question is, are we happy to have an extra, a 6th bedroom in that house, which is in the attic conversion? Is that it? And that is sharing the 2 bathrooms which are on the middle floor. And they all have the use of the kitchen at the back, is that it?
I presume they can share the bathrooms however they want. There's nothing to stop. We don't have any control over how the internal use of the different bathrooms and kitchens is arranged. Once again, it's a HMO, it's a licensing issue. If they're happy with the setup, then that's obviously down to our licensing team.
I mean, it looks like overcrowding, doesn't it, really? Do we not have any argument about it's overcrowded already, and the 6th bedroom in the original house is sort of the straw that breaks the camel's back? I mean, presumably maybe at certain times of day they have to form an orderly queue to use the bathrooms. I don't know, but I mean, is there no control that we say a house divided into 5 bedrooms is quite enough?
I mean, the control is through our HMO team and their licensing. It's not a planning issue.
Okay, well, this isn't something that's a huge issue for us at the moment, but I've got a cousin who lives in Birmingham, and one area of Birmingham is becoming, massively HMOs, and it kind of leads you to wonder what the future holds, doesn't it? And, oh, well, I'm struggling with this.
Yeah, and I think that's where if a council particularly wants an area to maintain more standard residential, that they can declare the Article 4 and everything comes through planning permission, and so that they can, do have some control of that. I think us in Trowbridge, we didn't really realise that was the case till we started getting applications coming in. But we do need also housing for everyone, and I started off in a place like that, so yeah. Councillor White.
Just a technical question, if I may. The extra bedroom, has this passed the LACORS document B, the fire safety?
I mean, those issues are not planning issues. They're for our building regs and HMO teams.
So the licensing, the HMO licensing, their main function is safety and checking that it is safe for people to live under those conditions.
And may I second question? Just you said that there are 2 parking spaces. You explained why there should be 4.5 or 4, and then it was 3, and now it's 2. One of those is a condition that needs a drop curb. Is that right?
Yeah. To clarify, the council parking standards for residential development is where there's 4 or more bedrooms, I believe it's required 3 off-road parking spaces. So that's the clarification on parking spaces. So the maximum, if you have a 10-bedroom house, the maximum you'll need is 3 off-road parking spaces. From a purely planning point of view, those spaces are there for use by the occupants. My understanding is, based on what our highways officer has said, is that they don't have a drop to curb permission for that. But what we've done is we've conditioned that the 2 spaces should remain in perpetuity. So it's really down to them to get the licence if they need to cross the pavement.
Thank you.
Councillor Vaughan, and can you get right up close to the mic?
Yep, no problem.
You're even softer spoken than I am.
Okay. You hear me okay? Brilliant. I think I'm probably going to get the same answer as Nigel did, and it is kind of referring to building regs, but maybe it's a question as well I can ask. Normally on the second floor, I'm right in saying it's the new bedroom. If it's now depicted as a store, that probably would indicate to me that it doesn't have building regs, unless it was originally built, but I'm not entirely sure. So is there a mechanism in place by the planning committee that if we propose this and if it carries on, that before this it carries on to be inhabited, you know, do we check formally that the building regs are in place? Because as I say, if it hasn't had building regs, there would be, you know, huge implications in terms of fire and fire exits and all the rest of it. So is there a mechanism in place to, you know, to speak to the building regs people to make sure if they get it through that, that, you know, they do their job and check that everything is just so?
The very simple answer is once the building regs and planning permissions are not necessarily connected, we can apply. Somebody can apply and be granted planning permission for a scheme, but then it might require alterations due to building regulations like fire escapes, and vice versa. Building regulations might require certain things like fire escape steps and so on to be put in place that might require plan permission. So it's down to the applicant to apply for building regulations under that process, which is a separate process to the planning application process.
So if they think if I think they probably do need building regs for the loft conversion, we won't check at any point.
No, we won't be checking.
Okay.
Our part of the process ends at the granting of planning permission and discharging of any relevant conditions.
Thank you.
Councillor Park.
Thank you, Chair. We've heard some discussions from the officer about the provision of off-street parking, about the close proximity to the town centre. But I think there was a slide posted up where there was a lot of on-street parking and the discussion about the yellow lines. We can go back to that. It was quite congested, seemed to me very congested. And I asked a question that I think the highway officers, statutory consultee, didn't support this application. Is that correct?
Originally, we got some original comments from the highways team that objected to the scheme, but as part of the process, we discussed it further with them, and they amended their comments to what we have present, which is they thought the scheme was acceptable, subject to the 2 parking spaces being made available for users of this site. So we've conditioned under condition 3 that obviously they should remain in place in perpetuity. So, and also, sorry, does that answer your question, Councillor?
Just to refresh my mind, it was the 2 parking spaces that we currently saw on the slides. And are we able to regularise the drop curbs within the condition?
So the condition states that they should remain in perpetuity. We've got to be very careful with conditions that we should be avoiding reference to other processes. So conditions, so for example, a condition shouldn't state you should do X subject to building regulations. We shouldn't really be connecting the 2. So the way we've dealt with it is to effectively leave it up to the applicant. So it's down to the applicant to make sure those parking spaces are there in perpetuity. If they need to comply with other regulations, so for example, building regulations or parking regulations, it's down to them to conform to those regulations and submit whatever applications they need.
Okay, so I think that's it with the technical questions. We'll now move on to members of the public. My list is as follows. So we have Erica Staxenius, a local resident, objector first, then Michel Edahar, objector, then David Layton, who's the agent and a supporter, then Lucy Fryer, applicant, who's a supporter, obviously, and Michael Fryer, who's the applicant and a supporter. And each of you have 3 minutes in that order. So over to you, Erica, and let's press the button on the right. That's it.
Thank you very much. I'm going to have to talk very, very quickly, so please bear with me. I'm going to talk on highways and parking, because I think this is at the core of the matter. WCS, and it's part of 941, Core Policy 64. This is based on sustainable transport vision of the future and the removal of cars in towns, meaning there will be the main source of transport, which is unlikely to happen due to the vast investment that's going to be across the country. Understandably, due to the lack of reliability, lack of routes and cost to the public transport, Core Policy 64 does not currently apply, and I will explain that further. 942 NPPF paragraph 116. The original refusal of this application on safety grounds from the Highways Planning Officer is included on the statement, and I've given that out to you. It's dated the 24th of June 2025. The parking issues around the area hasn't suddenly evaporated or gone away. Additional 5 more cars from the HMO, it only reinforces the risks of the highway safety in this area. Importantly, referring to number 24 Eastbourne Road, the landlord and the estate agent have unadvisedly advertised the property as having parking, so attracting those with cars. 943, drop curb, again, that's down to the landlord. 944, the Wiltshire Council Local Transport Plan advises that resident properties with 4 or more bedrooms with 3 off-parking spaces should be required. With HMO in resident market towns of Victorian and Edwardian housing, this may not be possible and should be part of the WCC's remit to deny developments of HMOs in this area, such as these, and be part of Article 4. 945, this has already been addressed in 944. Minimum parking standards. 946 and 947. This covers the current parking situation of the high demand from the surrounding area where we live. Obviously, these types of residential homes weren't built with cars in mind, and most of the homes in the areas have at least 1 or 2 cars with the possibility of more vehicles for adult children, plus the need of multiple occupancy rental homes. It's at times very difficult to find a space and usually some distance from the residential property. 948 and 9410, access to public transport and ease of access to town centre. Again, this is used as a point of acceptance, but I have other thoughts for you. Public transports, buses, trains currently do not cater for the needs, i.e. workplaces not on public transport routes, night shifts, shopping, healthcare, or the return from one of the nearby cities from a night out. 949. The Old Mill, in the conservation area as per planning number given, we noted that this property is an industrial area of the town centre, whereas Eastbourne Road is not considered as town centre but as residential Trowbridge. The Old Mill's in the cul-de-sac with 9 parking spaces and reported as underused, but the main point is 9 parking spaces are all on private land provided by the landlord.
You've just gone over 3 minutes, so can you wrap up,
Okay.
please?
Therefore, it was passed, and I'm just going to round up on that regarding that. You therefore cannot compare the 2 developments, that is also considering Carpenton Arms. I would like to think that this should be inadmissible for this application. It's like comparing chalk with cheese. I'd also want full evidence of the local inspector's report. When was it done? How many days and time? Unless it's completed over 24/7, how can it be accepted as re-evidence?
Thank you.
Okay. I will sum up.
No, your time is up.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
afraid. It
sorry.
was 3 minutes, you've gone 3 minutes 40. I do have to keep that straight. I will let you have another 30 seconds or so. Over to you, Michelle.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. My name is Michelle and I live next to 24 Eastbourne Road. I'm speaking today on behalf of the local residents. We've spent months engaging with this process, reviewing the policies and to make it a fair and informed decision today. For reference, the house in question, 24 Eastbourne Road, was for sale as a 3-bedroomed family home. I understand the comment about overcrowding, but we must understand that there's at the moment 6 unrelated adults in this property. They are not family. You could say that, yes, there's just one extra room, and is that going to make much of a difference? But actually, it is going to make a difference. Point number 2, Trowbridge Town Council unanimously objected to this proposal. This view has not changed. The residents, the town council, and the local councillors all share the same concern. In front of you, you will see some of my notes, and you'll see all of the 6 core strategies that, the core strategy and the core policies that it fails to meet. Now, this is multiple. You will also see references as to why. The Highways Department originally recommended refusal from this application. Nothing about the layout, parking or access has changed since that recommendation was issued. We already see cars parking fully on the pavement outside 24 Eastbourne Road, including across the entrance that does not have a dropped curb. Pedestrians, including parents with pushchairs and children walking to the nursery opposite, are being forced onto the road. This is what it looks like now, without anything else additional. Also with that, we have, unfortunately, fly tipping from the 24 Eastbourne Road. Another household of the street had to go and pick it all up, and it clearly shows on there the name and the address, 24 Eastbourne Road. So obviously this is again an issue and relates to the core policies. As documented by the Highways, Eastbourne Road is not classified as town centre. It's a narrow residential street opposite a nursery. The street already suffers pavement parking and congestion at nursery run times. So, as I said, this was a 3-bedroom family home, and it now contains already 7 residents, not 6. It is lawful for it to be C4, to have 6 residents. I'm going to state again, it has 7 residents, and this is actually from one of the residents of 24 Eastbourne Road. The proposed 7th bedroom is actually already done and built, being advertised. All of which the planning officer is aware of. So for the planning officer to use a different venue, the Old Mill, to justify it as a comparison for approval is simply not the case. It is not comparable in planning terms. You will also see a table at the very end of the document that I gave you with a comparison of it. The officer's role is to make recommendations based on fact and policy.
You've done over 3.5 minutes. I'm asking you to stop now. I think everyone has seen 3 minutes right now.
I'll just finish my sentence, Chair, if I may be allowed.
Sentence.
The officer's role is to make recommendation based on fact and policy, not fear of potential appeal outcomes.
Thank you very much. And I'll give a correspondingly lengthy time to the points. Okay, so over to David Layton, please. Thank you very much, and you get 3.5 minutes.
Hello there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity to respond. Yes, indeed, it is important not to respond from fear. So I reiterate that we are applying for a extra 2 people and 1 bedroom. The conversion to a 6-bedroom HMO has already happened. This is a shared house, and picking up on some of the points that were made before, there are actually 4 bathroom and shower facilities in the property, not 2. Individual rooms do not have bathing and cooking facilities, so the communal facilities at the ground floor are indeed shared amongst all of the occupants. I would say that the conversion has been done to a very high standard because of the type of occupancy that we're trying to seek, and more will be said about that in a minute. But to give an example of that, the rooms The smaller rooms are 30% in excess of what is required for HMO regulations. The larger rooms vary between about 150 and 300% larger than is required by HMO regulations. And the communal kitchen areas are a total of nearly 28 square metres. So the property, because it's a fairly large property that has been previously extended, actually facilitates a very high standard of internal space, and it's been finished in a very high standard of decor as well. And we believe that that will attract the right type of occupancy. The other point I'd really like to pick up on is the one of parking. And obviously, when the comments are made about parking, we equally have a concern, because if there is a parking issue, that affects us as well as other local residents. As a result of that, well, we have put in the application for the drop curb. I should say that that application has been made. And picking up on the gentleman's point here, whilst you were questioning process, the building regulations have been submitted and approved, as has the HMO licence. So it is a compliant property, and it's got fire alarms, fire doors, all things that you would expect. Going back to the parking, in response to the comments that were made, the owners of their own decision actually commissioned a parking stress survey, and I'm sure you folk will be aware of a thing called the Lambeth methodology for testing parking stress. Although it technically wasn't required, if we're only required to provide 2 spaces, we nevertheless did do that. And what that does show is that the normal threshold that local authorities use of 85% occupancy parking indicating a start of stress, the occupancy in this location, both overnight and during the day, is less than 85%. And what that translates to is that at night, which is the highest occupancy car parking space, there are still 16 parking spaces within 200 metres of the house. And then during the day, from 7 o'clock onwards, as the day continues, the parking slots increase, and we end up with 32 parking spaces in the middle of the day, averaged out over the days that survey was done. And that survey was done after the use of the property had been initiated. So it's a fair indication that whilst there is a busy area, there is some parking capacity in the area. Thank you.
Over to Lucy Fryer, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Lucy. I'm the owner of 24 Eastbourne Road, together with my husband, Michael. Houses of multiple occupation often raise concerns regarding 3 things: quality of the housing, the nature and the behaviour of the occupants, and the quality of the management. David, our architect, can address the details of the house and the parking. Michael will be talking about the residents that we have in the house. I will talk to you about the management. First of all, I think it's worth pointing out that we are highly experienced HMO property owners and managers. We've done 25 years and counting. We know what we're doing. We like to provide beautiful homes for people to enjoy. It's the same kind of desire that people have who wish to set up B&Bs and guest houses. We live locally. We can be on site within 30 minutes if necessary, if there is a problem. We carry significant risk with the HMO. We have invested our personal savings, and we have a large mortgage debt with it. So it's in our interest to ensure that the property is well looked after by our tenants, and we want that as much as our neighbours do. We are actually aligned with our neighbours because we also want well-behaved residents in a nice neighbourhood as much as they do. Why wouldn't we? To ensure that, we manage our houses very closely. We have a cleaner who goes in weekly, and believe you me, a single splash of tomato sauce up the wall and I know about it. We have a gardener. We have a handyman. Together they ensure that the house is gardened, maintained, cleaned, monitored and kept up together. I'm not saying that issues never arise, but if an issue does arise, we are responsive. And a problem solved is not a problem. We had one resident who did not understand the bin system. We explained the system, we sorted the matter, we solved the problem. There has been no repeat. Eastbourne Road is already operating as a 6-bed HMO. I do not believe our neighbourhood has suffered from our presence or even noticed it much, and I do not think it will suffer or notice an extra 2 people in that house. In short, we are an experienced and safe pair of hands. We provide quality HMO housing for pleasant residents who we support well, and we do it well. Thank you.
Thank you. And over to Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to give you an insight into who our HMO residents are, and for the other residents of Eastbourne Road that are here, who your neighbours are. They're generally between their early 20s and early 50s, and usually single. They are skilled professionals and often graduates who are starting, building, or running a career. Our houses, its style, their decor, the facilities, the services we offer, and the effective management attract them to come and live and work in Trowbridge from other areas of the UK and, in fact, from around the world. So current residents include the head landscape gardener of a private country estate, product development and innovation graduate trainee in food production locally, an infrastructure and software engineer, continuous improvement software engineer, a care home manager, and a transport project manager. We also have another house in Trowbridge currently operating, where we've just had our HMO license renewed, where we have a laboratory technician at an environmental and scientific testing lab, a field engineer for a water company, a site services technician, and an events and booking coordinator working at the Trowbridge Town Hall. These are well-paid, well-qualified, and professional people. We take great care to match people who will get on together and who will be an asset to the house and the neighbourhood and be responsible citizens. Our residents value this style of living and value living with other people. A single person living alone can be very isolating. So the social aspect of living in a shared house is very important to them, and it becomes their community within a community. Our residents are busy people. They're pursuing their careers, working hard, making their way in life. So we arrange and pay for their electricity, Wi-Fi, gas, council tax, building insurance, look after the maintenance and cleaning and the gardening. All of these facilities and services are included in the rent our residents pay, which allows them to focus on living their lives. The message I'd like to leave you with is that we are experienced, professional, competent and legally compliant landlords running high-quality homes. But more than that, and as important, we are very sensitive to the part our house and its residents play in making a pleasant, respectful and safe community. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, now I'll hand over to me as the local member. I think this is very difficult. From my perspective, all those houses down there were designed as single-family residences, and are suitable for that. That's part of the design. This one is being converted into something it wasn't designed for. If this type of conversion is replicated further down the street and more houses become HMOs, it adds to already existing traffic problems. The area, you can see it's on the end of Eastbourne Road where it joins Eastbourne Gardens, and Eastbourne Gardens around the corner is more modern development. All those houses have their own parking, some have garages, and same with Furlong Gardens, and all are to the left. To the right, it's the terraced properties where we have parking issues at the moment. The initial reaction of Mr. Sims and the highways was, on just looking through this quickly, their feeling was to refuse this based on highways grounds. And that changed after they saw it was pointed out about the appeal on the other side of the road, other side of Counter Way. I feel strongly that this isn't town centre, it isn't that well connected. And I'm going to quote now from what Highways originally said. They said, whilst I note, and this is a communication with Mr. Sims from Highways, whilst I note your point, RE proximity to convenience store in the town centre, this is not a town centre location in my view, and generally should not meet the criteria for a reduction from the minimum residential car parking standards as outlined in PS6 of the local plan. Transport Plan 3 car parking strategy. So you know, they're saying it is not a town centre location. There are conversions that are going on across town which are good and which are welcomed by residents. There's one in Bond Street, which hasn't been determined yet, where the funeral directors is being converted into 7 flats. And the local residents there are welcoming that with local arms wide open. And that is because there's 7 parking spaces associated with it. And it's luxury to be able to do that. And that's the type of building that is suitable. I think HMOs have their place. And in town, we have the Carpenter's Arms and various places which are more suitable for conversion and are closer to the train stations and the centre of town. So, other points I've got. So while I'm not against HMOs, I don't feel this conversion enhances the areas, and I'd like to suggest that we refuse this application on these grounds. Now, the first one is exactly what Highways said originally. They said the proposed development would be likely to encourage the parking of vehicles on the public highways within the vicinity, which would prejudice the safety of road users locally and interrupt the I can send this through, the free flow of traffic. The proposal therefore considered to be contrary to Wiltshire Core Strategy, CP 64 and MPPF Section 9, paras 115, 116 and 117. I'd also like to bring in core, so the second reason is core policy 57, ensuring high quality design and place shaping. And it's the place shaping part that I'm there. The conversion of a modest 3-bedroomed family home into a 7-bedroomed 8-person HMO represents clear overdevelopment. And that's what the town council were saying as well. And then last one, core policy 61, the transport and development. The street is narrow and already under pressure from on-street parking, especially at peak hours, linked to the nursery directly opposite. Increasing the number of residents will worsen congestion. So it will have a material effect there. Now, I know there's pressure on, does it make it so dangerous that we should refuse it? And I think that the phrase Councillor Newbury said about the straw that broke the camel's back, this is an incremental change, but it's a change in the wrong direction, which the Highways originally felt was too much, and so the planning officer. So those are the 3 things I'd like to refuse it on. Core strategy CP 64, 57 and 61, and I would seek a seconder.
Thank you, Chair. Are you moving that?
I'm moving that.
I'm
yes.
happy to second that.
All right, seconded by Councillor Parks and open for debate. What do people think?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Excuse me. Apologies, Councillor Newbury, I was quick off the gun. I can't remember all the CPs I've got written down here that you quoted as reasons why you wanted to refuse this. But I think sometimes when I was listening to this, we're conflating the issue. This HMO already existed. All we're talking about is an additional room with 2 people. And I can't see that will make a significant enough difference in the areas you've mentioned. I visited the property and I've had a look. I know exactly what you mean by the parking. And frankly, you know, if we all want to have 2 cars, that's not going to go away anyway. It's not my business to say how you advertise your apartments, but advertising with parking space, no, that's just for you. But I'm minded to accept this. I don't think we have enough reason, in my experience, which is not very much, to refuse it. So I would motion that we accept this.
You won't support the motion, Councillor Newbury?
If we are able to refuse this, and I'm not quite sure, I'm sympathetic to refusing it because of the potential for the whole street to go this way, and where do we end up then? This is clearly not an ideal area for HMOs. Having said that, what the applicant said did reassure me about the idea that this was headed for being a sort of an old-fashioned tenement. And on the point about the highway reason for refusal, I'd be interested to hear from Mr. Sims. As I understood it, officers initially liked the refusal on the highway ground, but veered away from it when they saw an appeal decision. Is that right? I mean, one of the speakers in the open forum reminded us that we have to have a severe impact on highway safety to refuse on highway grounds. And I'm wondering, I mean, almost certainly if we do refuse this, it will go to appeal. I'd be astonished if it didn't. And the question then is, what are the reasons that we can defend on appeal? And my instinct is that this highway reason, I'd be interested to hear from officers what they make of our chances of defending the highway reason and defending it on a costs appeal, because clearly what we do not want to do is to be shelling out a whole lot of money for an indefensible refusal reason. Can we hear from officers on that?
Yeah, I mean, to clarify, officers' views change as you move through an application and you assess against consultee comments. The original comments of the highways officer were to recommend refusal until we had to point out certain things about the scheme, that it was really only for 1 additional bedroom and 2 occupants. It was close to the town centre. There's facilities in the immediate area of the road, and their parking standards only require maximum 3 spaces where we know they can get 2 on site. So following discussions with the highway officer, between myself and the highway officer, it was decided to, basically we asked them to reconsider their comments, which they came back and therefore stated, look, you know, if you condition the 2 parking spaces, we'll be relatively okay with this one. So we shouldn't be reading too much into the original comments of the highways officer. Consultee comments will change throughout the planning process of an application as they might have more information and decisions change. Part of our role is to put those consultee comments on the website, which therefore they become available for people to review and quote back to us. But the final comments are, as stated, a recommendation, no objection, subject to condition. So that's what the highway officer comments are. In terms of an appeal, as Scary has already stated, that the MPPF paragraph 116 is very clear that the highway harm really has to be at the level of severe to warrant a recommendation to refuse on highway safety grounds. It's very difficult to prove and very difficult to show. The inspector will come along and look at it and go, this is only 1 additional bedroom and 2 additional occupants. So where is the harm? Just because a scheme doesn't comply with council parking standards doesn't mean we should refuse it. We have to look at the harm. And officers consider that the harm is just not going to be a sufficient level in this area to warrant a refusal. Yes, we do note that there's poor parking in the area. That's going to be the same wherever you get these more old-style developments, as you stated, terraced houses in built-up areas. But there's nothing stopping a 3-bedroom property or a 4-bedroom property having 8 adults in there as one extended family. And the car park, we don't control car park ownership. We only really look to control car park spaces. So you could have a dwelling with a lot of adults in that could have own as many cars as they want and try and park them in the area. So what we're really looking at in planning terms is there sufficient harm to warrant a refusal, and I think that's where we as officers have stated no, we don't think that's the case, and we are arguing that the 2 parking spaces currently available for use by the existing HMO, as you are correct, Councillor, that obviously we have an existing 6-person HMO already on site and operating. So is that harm sufficient to warrant refusal? No. In terms of costs against us, we're here presenting you the information. We've provided slides of the site for those people that haven't visited the site, and obviously a number of councillors have visited the site. So as long as the refusal reasons don't stay with policy and don't go into areas like future residents might do this, that and the other, which we really shouldn't be making a decision on, you should be okay in terms of costs. But officer advice is that we don't think we can support, that we don't think a refusal reason would be supported at appeal.
And what about the costs on the highway reason?
Once again, the council has to show that it is as I can't remember the proper term.
The key thing is that if we can't produce evidence to demonstrate the harm set out in the reason for refusal, we could be open to an award of costs. And my personal concern is that I'm worried that we wouldn't be able to produce evidence to justify that the impact of 1 additional bedroom and 2 people is going to have that severe impact on the local highway network. But in addition to that, my worry increased when I heard the applicants talk in public forum that they've carried out the parking stress test in the area, which demonstrates that within that area 200 metres that there are spaces even at the worst possible time. So we'd be going into an appeal, very concerned, both in terms, I think, of whether we would win the appeal and also whether we would protect ourselves from costs, to be perfectly honest.
Okay, well, I just think probably we'd do better to drop the highway reason.
Councillor Stokes.
Yes, thank you. I'm sympathetic to the parking issues. I mean, but that's a problem. I think everyone can say we've got all over, whether it's on an old estate, new estate. It's an issue. However, I'm also very mindful that we do have a housing crisis, and actually affordable accommodation is in very short supply. And I personally feel, 1 bedroom, I mean, it does remind me a bit of student digs from my old days, but, an extra 1 bedroom that's affordable is something that is very much needed. And in a time where we're saying, no, we've got to be very careful about where we're building our houses. This is already in a house. It's an extra, we're not having to build somewhere else to give another couple a home. So for me, I have to, that's kind of more where my heart is going, of this gives someone an affordable option.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else got points? And I will drive it to a vote on as it stands. Councillor White.
May I make one very small comment? You talked about the danger of this unfolding down the street. I mean, even in my limited experience here on the planning committee, a number of times where people have tried to argue this is the thin end of the wedge in terms of development or change of planning. And I've been told that that's not pertinent to this particular application. So I just wanted to make that comment.
No, that's true, and I think from being the local councillor triggering an Article 4 so that all similar applications coming forwards come through the planning committee first, and then we can at least then begin to have some level of control over the proportion of an area that becomes HMOs if we so want to. Okay, I am going to take it to a vote as it stands. Those in favour of the... I've still got the highway reasons. Yeah, so just,
I do have the full, do you want me to pop it up on the slides?
Mr. Chairman, can I make one more comment now or later?
yes.
Can I just suggest to planning officers that it's not always helpful to put in another refusal of a planning appeal for a property that's really not the same, the one in the mill? I don't think it's helpful. So the appeal 1901142, they were using that as an example of this appeal got turned down, and we don't want to have the same situation. I don't think that was helpful in this particular.
No, I don't think it was similar enough an application. It wasn't a similar enough application
No,
to-
exactly.
to have
Sorry.
a huge bearing, is my feeling. So, yeah, this is what I like to see, and I know the only thing stopping this would do is take away one bedroom, effectively, but I think it is a stand that's worth taking. So I will go to the vote. All those in favour of what's on the table?
1, 2, 3. It's 3, 4.
Those against?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Any abstentions? One abstention.
1 abstention.
Okay, so I'll look for somebody else to propose something. Councillor Clark.
I'm not falling over myself to do it, but I suppose the only option is to propose the officer's recommendation.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay, does anybody want to debate that? All those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7, Chair.
Are those against?
1, 2, 3. That's 3, Chair.
Abstentions? 1. Okay, so that's passed. And thank you for members of the public giving up their time and coming in. On to, yep.
Yeah, I know this is highly irregular, but if you allow me. The next item, I'm sorry, I'm moving on to the next item. I only called it in at the request of Hilton Parish Council, and I didn't actually agree with it, but I did as I was asked. I understand the Parish Council has not bothered to come to speak.
No.
And just to say that if it sort of speeds up the officer's report, when it comes to me, I'll be moving the officer's recommendation for permission.
Yes.
So I just didn't want to go through lots of faff.
Thank you for that.
but-
I think it's essentially saying the officer's report doesn't have to be quite so detailed as maybe it could have been.
We used to sometimes have officers who would say, nothing to add.
I think that was a hint, wasn't it? So on to the last section, and I'll hand over to the officer to explain the application.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, this is application has been requested to be heard at committee by Councillor Clark. If officers are minded to recommend approval. The reasons for the call-in are because Hilton Parish Council requested it as such because they had concerns. Oh, sorry. They had concerns over possible overdevelopment and parking issues. The site is number 25, Queen's Gardens. Just there you can see that. Mate. Just there. Established residential area. The aerial photograph shows that to be fairly well developed locality. On to the next one. So now the proposal is for two-storey side extension. take place here. It's the front elevation. Single-storey rear extension should take place here, as can be seen, and also an enlarged front porch area, as shown here. Now, these are just some plans showing the existing ground floor and first floor plans. So at ground floor, we have the living room here and the kitchen here. And bear with me. At first floor level, we have 3 bedrooms, as shown here. This is the proposed ground floor and first floor plans, as shown here. Do we have the pointer, the red pointer? This? Thank you. Yeah, so here we are. Proposed ground floor here. It's going to be an enlarged dining room, kitchen diner here. Proposed study on the right-hand side here, and that's utility room. First floor level, we're going to have additional bedroom here on the side with an ensuite. Now, this is the proposed site plan, which shows the proposed car parking arrangements. Essentially, we already have parking space for 2 cars here. There's sufficient space to have another car parking area on the immediate side. There's a drop curb already in parts here. It would also be the case that there'll be continuation of the drop curb along here. So the photographs of the actual site itself. So front of 25 Queen's Gardens. I was just saying, you can see the drop curb in part here. There's ample space for another vehicle to be sited here. The drop curb would be continued along here. This is a view from the rear garden of the property. This covered open area would be removed. Single-storey extension would go here, and obviously the 2-storey side extension would just go here like that. So the area is developed. There's quite a few properties along Queen's Gardens who have done this very same thing. So just walk along the highway. There's this one property here. You can see they've extended the side, opened the front up for parking. Again, it's the same on the left-hand side, albeit the design is a little bit different, but it's been opened up for car parking. So 2-storey side extension there as well. Another example, 2-storey side extension with an improved larger porch area. The front area has been turned into car parking accommodation. There's also examples of properties along the very same road showing where they've opened up the front for car parking. And here we've not necessarily had an extension, but you know, it's opened the front up for car parking. And the same is true with this one here. Again, doesn't appear that they've put an extension in, but again, the front is adapted for off-road car parking. And then back to the proposed site plan, and that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any technical questions? Councillor Vaughan.
Thanks, Chairman. Can I just confirm that the edge of the extension is the right distance from the boundary, which I think is maybe 100 mil, or can we make sure that that's the case? That it's up to the boundary at the right measurement, basically.
Yeah, the boundaries are there, but there's no rule that you can't park up to the boundary.
Yeah, I think the councillor's referring to the proximity of the new build to the boundary. There isn't really a planning rule around that. It's more of a party wall act thing, which again, sorry to say again, is separate legislation that they'd have to comply with.
Okay, so you can assure me that the new extension is the correct distance from the boundary?
It'd have to comply with the party wall act.
Brilliant, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, no questions, so I will go on to the public statements, and we have the applicant, James Bush here, who's got 3 minutes to tell us about his wonderful extension.
Okay, thanks everyone. It's not going to take 3 minutes. So just a quick statement. So my family and I have lived in the parish for almost 20 years now. This is where we started and grown our family. Got 2 young children. Myself, I work probably in the biggest employer in the town, and I can walk to work, so you can work out pretty quickly. I work at Appetito, so I work not very far away from, so I can walk there. I run a grassroots football team. I have done for the last 6 or 7 years in neighbouring Staverton. So I'm a member of the community here. We put a lot into the community and work in the community. So I'm here today really looking for support and approval of our proposed extensions. We hope you consider there's not only professional input, obviously, from the plan officer and our architect, but also how this project will allow us to adapt our home to meet our family's needs for the future. We've spoken to our immediate neighbours on both sides, who've both been supportive, and to your point, the party wall, we've discussed that party wall with our neighbour. They're happy, and even joked with quite a few of our neighbours, why haven't you done it sooner? You've got a growing family, why haven't you done it? And obviously, it's financial reasons, and I'm now in a position to be able to make the extension. And especially many homes on my street have already been extended, and we can already see as well from the planning here that we've got, not like the previous case, I've got spaces for at least 3 cars on that driveway. Believe the design is thoughtful, and it's very, very similar to what my neighbours, so I'm not looking to do anything out of it, any extreme, and I'm keeping up the character of the neighbourhood. And hopefully you'll support me on my next step for my family. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Move the officer recommendation.
I'll second it. All those in favour? Hey, a swift one.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I gain your attention a minute? There are a couple of other items I've just skimmed straight past and started packing up to go, and that being, where am I? Just are there any urgent items? And the answer to that is no, I don't think. Anybody got any urgent items? Okay, then I declare this meeting concluded. Sorry about that.
You said they work.